to make sure that, because I know some people.
Hello?
Hello.
Testing 1 2 1 2.
Yeah, if you push the button at the top, right? That's to talk.
Oh, that's the signal that I
That's a
want.
signal that he will see.
When it's lit, he'll. Trisha.
I had to gavel in. All right, I'm turning it. All right, I'm turning it. I didn't know Magic Gavel would do that. All right, we're gonna go ahead with item number 1, which is the city manager's update.
Thank you. And I'm going to share my screen if I can. Can you all hear me in the chambers?
Yes, we can.
Mr. Feldman.
Member of Raven, he filed a document and he will not be present and will be doing so virtually. Member Atkins Cox. Member Blunt. Member Bush.
I'm surprised.
Member Dixon, who's also virtual.
Present.
Member Fox. Member Grundy Gomez.
Present.
All the devices have to be muted from the phone, laptop. Yeah. I'm trying to figure out how to get this thing to. I'm trying to get this. I didn't turn that on. All right, the computer off. Go.
Yeah, because I think the meeting and the speakers have to be muted on the laptop.
Makes sense. Member Jacob Idy. Member Christopher Merritt. Jason Mitchell. Warren Nielsen. Michael Palmer. Chairman Pollitt. Top chair or vice chair, C. Wright. Sorry about that. So we do not have a quorum present, Mr. Chairman. I wanted for a point of clarification, if I may. You have a single sheet agenda on the front top. And the only thing we did here, the only change was that we flipped the order of one of the items, and that was the board elections. Because in the event that we establish quorum, we will then adopt the agenda and follow with that piece. Whereas on the initial package, that was at the very top. All right, so this is to replace just the first page of the agenda? That is correct. Thank you. The agenda otherwise is in that very same order. Okay, we're back to the introduction of the city manager and his update on the city strategic planning process. Sorry for the delay.
Not a problem, sir. So let me just share my screen and start the presentation. So I wanted to just take a few moments, and I won't be long.
Hang on just a minute, please. We don't have any visual in here. There it goes. Thank you. Go ahead.
So I just wanted to take a moment tonight and talk to you about our strategic planning process. I'm doing this with all the boards and committees of the city so that you can understand when we talk about priorities, how did they come about, and how do they fit in with the overall mission of the city. So we started a strategic planning process in the early summer with the city commission. And in this process, we had 5 steps that are sort of in a circular fashion because this is an ongoing process. We don't just do it once. So first we seek feedback from our neighbors. We do this through a number of different forums, but primarily through our neighbor annual survey. And I'll touch base on that in a second. We then meet with the city commission and senior staff to talk about what the strategic priorities are, and I'll go over those in a few minutes. Once we know what the priorities are, then we use those to build our budget and to allocate our resources. And then staff meets monthly in a program we call Perform GNV to measure our progress, to determine where obstacles lay in achieving success. And then also we meet to celebrate success and figure out where we make improvements. And then we start that whole cycle over again. So in this case, we met with the commission. In August, they established our priorities. We allocated resources as we were going along this year with the budget. We've had several Perform GNV meetings, and we've just launched our neighbor survey for the second time, and that's out on the street as we speak. We have core values, and those core values are really centered around teamwork and in serving our neighbors and building community, which is really what our mission has been. Our core values: performance, respect, integrity, dedication, and I think the most important one is empathy. When we did our neighbor survey this time around, we got some pretty decent scores, and we benchmarked those against other cities in Florida as well as the nation. 83% of our neighbors felt that this was an excellent or good place to live. 79% excellent or good place to raise children. 71% excellent or good place to work. And 77% of our neighbors felt that they felt safe inside the city of Gainesville. Our neighbor feedback, which is again the step one, is we look at this on a district by district basis. This is a sample of one of the maps in there that shows that we've had good ratings as a place to live across all 4 districts. But from this, we determined that our neighbors are looking for us to make improvements in the quality of life, in the overall cost of living, availability of employment opportunities, and in the cost of electricity and water services. The commission set strategic goals and priorities. We have 5 goals. The first is equitable community, sustainable community, a great place to live and experience, a resilient local economy, and best-in-class neighbor services. And these goals, we constantly look at what this means to our neighbors and how our strategic priorities can relate to the same. Oops. Going the wrong direction here, sorry. So when we talk about equitable community, we want to make sure that we have equitable access for all of our neighbors to healthcare and other neighbor services. And you can see that there are 6 other aspects to this, and I won't go through each of these. They're all in your backup. Sustainable community as a goal, primarily to increase the acreage of natural and conservation lands, to pursue our zero waste goal, to reduce the organization's carbon footprint by 25%, and to have more of our neighborhoods on sewer systems and less on septic systems. A great place to live and experience, affordable housing, free transit and affordable transit, elimination of chronic homelessness, and to reduce transitional homelessness by 50%. Those are all parts of this goal. Resilient local economy, reducing the poverty level by 25%. And that would line up with other major university communities to develop successful minority women business-owned enterprise programs to attract new businesses to Gainesville and to try to foster how we have a number of successful and sustainable small and locally owned businesses. And then final goal is the best in class neighbor services. We want to make sure that we have a good workforce of community builders here, that our organization emphasizes professionalism, service, and teamwork, that we have all of the departments working together, that we have our continued high level of satisfaction, and that we're developing the effective use of performance measures as we move forward. So what are the top priorities of the commission? Affordable housing, and we're going to have a more expansive talk with the commission over the next couple of meetings starting on February 18th and on to March 4th. Downtown master plan, that work, you all have assisted in funding that, and that work is now underway with a firm. I think you got a presentation at your last meeting on MKSK out of Greenville, South Carolina. Comprehensive city public health policy. I think the pandemic has shown where we need this, but it's more than just pandemic. It's making sure that all of our neighbors have access to easy access to affordable health care. And so that's something that we have undertaken as a top priority. The community policing and use of force and implementation of new community policing zones. That's work that we undertook during the summer, and we're currently in the process of implementing. And then a city racial equity policy and plan. This work is primarily out of our Equity and Inclusion Office, which is under Charter Officer Tanisha Marshall, but one that both general government and GRU are supporting. And that is to look at equity on pretty much everything that we are doing. Our high priorities, because we just can't stop with top priorities, are these 8 items, and they deal with food. We changed this priority around slightly with the commission. Instead of food desert elimination, it's more about food access and security. Vision Zero, which we know is a big topic now, and a lot of work that we have to do on West University, which tends to be our largest pedestrian car interaction contact zone. Gainesville East Incentivized Development Plan. How can we use incentives to help with all development, both commercial and residential on the east side? An action plan for our houseless neighbors, something that we've been pretty active in the past, and we need to make some more improvements on. The city environmental goal to get to 100% renewable energy. Broadband and how we start making community high-speed broadband available to all of our neighbors across the city and help eliminate the digital divide. Exclusionary zoning, how we're going to make exclusionary zoning, but how we're going to eliminate it. And that's work that we're also undertaking. And then, as you know, because you've heard some presentations on this, we want to figure out better ways all the time of engaging our neighbors in the different programs that we are doing, seek their input, their guidance, their advice, and their feedback as we're moving along. Goal always is to take all this information, top and high priorities, and to feed them into our budget. This year, we'll have a better chance of doing that. Our strategic planning session with the commission will be in April, and that will feed into our budget process nicely as we develop the budget and present it during the summer months. Any good strategic plan is always going to have our way of measuring. And so we will now be taking these priorities and developing key performance indicators. But most importantly, what we're going to do is not look at how well we're always doing, but what's keeping us from being good. Or do we have barriers? Do we have processes in our own systems that keep us from performing. And these we call areas for improvement. So we will really be concentrating on these deficits as we're moving forward so that we can ultimately have a high-performing organization. And again, the fifth step is to celebrate our success, to ring the bell, to make sure that everybody's aware of all of our achievements. But also we want to celebrate some of our failures too, because failure in my mind has always been a way of showing that at least we're trying, and we can't always succeed and ring that bell, but we need to be able to understand where our failures can help us improve as we move along. So we will continue to execute, measure, assess, and innovate. And that is our plan. I'm going to stop sharing my screen, and I'm happy to take any questions that you might have.
All right, thank you, Mr. City Manager. We have, for the board, we have Mr. Grande Gomez has a question. He'll go last. All right, I don't even know which way the numbers run. But we'll go down here, Mr. Mitchell.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Here's six.
Yeah, my question is, thank you for the presentation, first of all. I wanted to know more about the process for collecting samples for the neighborhood feedback. And also, I want to know if we can get a breakdown of sentiments on these categories that you have for the feedback: excellent, good place to live, et cetera, by district. The reason why I ask this is because though we are a unified district now, there is still a desire for transparency in terms of the differences in terms of culture. And if we don't, like we were talking about, measure things, then there's no way to be accountable, there's no way to improve things. So I'm really interested in a district breakdown of these areas of how people feel based on the neighborhood feedback.
Sure, absolutely, Mr. Mitchell. I think you've got a really good point. We have created with our vendor an interactive web page, and I will ask that the staff get the entire advisory board copy of that link. But that allows you to go into the data and to drill down on any one of, I think, the 80 some odd questions that we had. You could look at the data by district, by census block, by demographic information such as gender, to get a sense as to where we're doing good and where we're doing bad, based upon each of the different demographic features and each of the neighborhoods within the districts. The study is statistically significant in terms of its sample size, and the report has I think a 3% error rate, if I recall. I'm doing that from the from my memory, but all that information is on the website, and you could drill down on any of the questions that you'd like to get more information on.
Yes, thank you. That information will be available through staff, I'm taking it?
We'll get you the link to the website, and then you can look at whatever questions you'd like, or if you have some specific questions that you want information on, staff can certainly assist in drilling down for it. But there's quite a few permutations, and so you may want to seek explore the website on your own, or we can help.
Okay, I will do that, but I think there still is a value to staff and the board being aware of the sentiments by district. I still maintain that.
Yes, and all that information is on that website, so you can look by district and for each question and see what the sentiments were. There were some idiotic. I mean, if you'd like a full presentation on it, we did about 2 hours with the commission one day on that. We can either give you the link to that presentation, which went went through, or you know, make arrangements to try to have staff walk through that presentation. But we asked a lot of questions. We didn't just ask those four.
Very much, Mr. Manager.
Okay. Member Seawright.
Yes, Mr. City Manager, I might be able to get this information from that same website. I just had a question. I was just curious as to how many persons, completed the surveys. But if that sounds like that might be able to be found at that website, at that link, so I can look that up if that's the case. And then could you tell me what date did you say you were going back to the City Commission with the strategic plan? Was that April?
I believe it is April, let me check, April 29th and April 30th.
Okay.
We have 2 days. And all that information is available. Each of the districts were equally sampled.
Okay. All right. Thank you. That's all.
All right. Member Grande Gomez.
Thank you. Happy New Year, Mr. Manager.
Thank you.
I have some
You too.
questions for you, Mr. Manager. So if we could go back to a couple of slides where you were showing the different initiatives, if we could pull those back up on screen, please. Where you were showing the different initiatives. You had like the East group, it was like several different color shades.
Yeah,
what I'm
would you talking about top priorities and high priorities?
Yes.
Okay, let me just share my screen again.
Yeah, if you could, that'd be great. And by the way, Mr. Manager, I'm glad to see you present this. This is actually, if you're presenting this to all boards?
As many as I can get to,
Okay.
yes.
It was this one and the next one where you had like you had the East Gainesville initiative or something like that?
Yes.
I think it was the next one. Yes, that one. Okay. So the high priority. So for us, you're not saying this is just inclusive of a strategic plan that encompasses a part of us as well as other municipal boards as well, correct? Not just us per se.
This is the entire city.
Okay. I'm just making sure I'm following you. Okay. So for me, Mr. Manager, if we could, with my particular interest especially, and my bias is going to come for the Gainesville East Incentivized Development Plan, can we unpack that a little bit tonight?
We could. I don't have all the details in
or
front
I'll
of
tell you
me.
what, just for the sake of time, I could always set up a meeting with you or a Zoom meeting with you and discuss that with you, right?
Absolutely.
Okay, that'll be fair enough. The one thing that I would like to do, Mr. Manager, is there anywhere in this plan for us when it comes to the Gainesville Incentivized Development Plan where we are including some of the bigger and higher level projects, not just some of the ones that we've been talking about, but some of the ones that are going to have an economic impact where this board will come into play?
Yes.
Okay. You actually answered my question. Mr. Manager, I guess any other questions, I'll set up a meeting with you appropriately and then get some answers from you that way, okay?
That works.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate you.
All right, do I have any other board questions? Are there any questions from the public? I'm looking down the list to see if anyone online has raised their hand. There's no hand raised at the moment.
There are no emails either.
All right, if anyone is attending by phone, you can dial *9 to raise your hand. I don't see anybody attending by phone. All right, hearing none, we can go on to our next item. Making sure it doesn't need a vote, right?
Yeah, I don't think you can vote anyway.
No, we can't vote, so I'm trying to find another item that doesn't require a vote. The finance update requires a vote. Does the CRA Advisory Board annual report require a vote? Doesn't look like it.
The annual report does require a vote.
All right,
The economic development finance update does not.
okay, who's doing that?
That's Chelsea
All right.
Bacchitis.
Next we'll do the economic development finance update. Welcome, Chelsea.
All right, good evening, everybody. Let me share my screen. All right, many of you know me already. My name is Chelsea Bacchitis, and I am a project manager with the GCRA. Sorry, one second. This isn't moving forward. Okay, there we go. Can you all hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. Well, today I am introducing the topic of economic development finance programs that is written in our GCRA 10-year reinvestment plan. I just want to let you guys know, advisory board members, you are the beginning in that conversation about what type of economic development programs need to be created by the GCRA. So first, I'm going to turn the presentation over to Eric Bretfeld. He's our Economic Development Director. He works out of the Office of Capital Assets Planning and Economic Resilience, otherwise known as CAPER, C-A-P-E-R. And he'll speak a little bit about citywide initiatives. And then second, our GCRA Director, Sarah Vidal, will discuss former economic development programs and their successes and opportunities. Third, I will review the GCRA and a little bit about the city's strategic economic development priorities and what came out of months of our GCRA community engagement last year. And fourth, I'll open the floor up for advisory board member discussion and feedback. And I want to kind of put the disclaimer that we are especially looking for feedback about business needs post-COVID crisis, since that has changed quite a bit, even since our initial economic development last year. All right, I will now turn the time over to Mr. Bretfeld.
Good evening, Mr. Chair and members of the board. I'm Eric Bretfeld. I do economic development work for the city of Gainesville. This evening, the GCRA staff asked me if I could just provide a brief overview of some of the incentives or investments that have been made in economic development over time, some of the things that I've worked on or been a part of as a team. So I only have 2 slides for you, and I wanted to just share some of those projects and then sort of some lessons learned, which are all really just designed to get you thinking about some of these things in terms of how you decide you want to recommend employing incentives for the GCRA area. So I would say the first 3 on this particular slide, GTEC, the Airport Industrial Park, and Innovation Square, I think they're all examples of what I would call or think of as sort of place-based economic development. They all revolve around particular sites and are basically investments that the city and other partners made in order to make particular private industry propositions occur. In the case of GTEC, I know that the board is pretty familiar with what's going on down there. That was basically the assemblage of land about 20 years ago, a little bit over 20 years ago. And then a federal EDA grant that was brought to bear with the county and city both participating in a local match in order to actually construct the facility. And then over time, the city of Gainesville actually providing operational resources basically to make GTEC itself a functional proposition, a functional real estate proposition, in order to try to build companies and get them graduated into the larger community. On the Airport Industrial Park, that is located just north of the Gainesville Regional Airport. That's another example of where the city of Gainesville and the airport partnered on basically developing the infrastructure in a particular assemblage of land so that if private industries either wanted to expand or be retained or actually be attracted to the park, they could do so. The incentive really for them to do that is that they can already develop in an area that has infrastructure in place in terms of things like stormwater, existing road system, et cetera, all of which the city contributed to over time. And then importantly also, in that case, the city can sell land, which it does fee simple, but it can sell it at a discount if it feels as though the economic development prospect makes some financial sense there. So we've had some victories there, and it's a fairly robust park. Our latest example is the FedEx footprint that just got developed there this past year, basically, which is a pretty sizable investment. I know the chair and many of you are familiar with Innovation Square. I mentioned that one because I think that was an example of where the city participated in really developing the platform of regulations first that allowed the development to occur in the fashion that the overall community was going to be comfortable with, particularly in the particular area. But as we all know, there was also public infrastructure that was put in, so that has been a platform for development that has been created as well. The next two bullets, the enterprise zone and the state of Florida qualified target industry incentive. These were state programs that the city either administered or participated in fairly regularly. The state enterprise zone program was basically a geography, the enterprise zone area that was designated by the city back in 1995. There was a local set of incentives, which was basically regulatory fee relief that went towards providing 50% reductions in development applications. And then there was a menu of state incentives that a particular firm could apply for as well. That program got sunsetted by the legislature in 2015. We still have the local portion of the enterprise zone in place, and that still provides the 50% reduction in development fees. And that's for any project that makes an application to the city that's located in that enterprise zone geography, which is predominantly in East Gainesville. State of Florida qualified target industry incentive. This was a incentive that was offered and underwritten by the state, where they would provide 80% of a incentive that was directed at the creation of job opportunities at 115% of the average private sector wage for the community. And the way that worked is basically companies that were interested in hiring folks, they could basically apply for that incentive through the state. And then, as I said, the state would provide 80% of that incentive, where the city and the county would each participate in providing 10%, the 20% local match. That was a good program because, the city commission was always had always been very supportive of that program. And the nice thing about it was that the state actually did the underwriting and the administration of it. The city just picked up the fee once the jobs were actually created. So it was a performance-based incentive. Unfortunately, that's another one that was sunsetted recently, but I think the model of that incentive is good in terms of it being performance-based with a local match and getting some assistance in terms of underwriting it by others. Working food I wanted to mention because that's an example of where the city came in and tried to work with a group that was trying to build capacity. sort of similar to the GTEC model in that the city commission provided capital funds and then also some operating funds to get the working food center up and running. That's basically a food system entrepreneurship program. It's located on 10th Avenue in the old Powell Plaza. And that's an example of where the city tried to work with an entity that was born to try to build businesses and provided, a limited amount of capital improvements, but then capital improvement funding, but then also some operational funding to get them off the ground. And then the last bullet point, the Opportunity Loan Program was a program that the city put together that was trying to get to the access to capital issue for small businesses. And what the city did in this case was the commission provided about $80,000 for a small business loan program. The sense was that the city really wasn't a lender and really wasn't in the underwriting business. So we entered into a partnership with a local bank at the time, Community Bank and Trust of Florida. The idea was that the city would provide the funding to the bank as a loan loss reserve, and the bank would make loans, micro loans they were, for small businesses, with the understanding that if somebody had a problem with the loan, that the city would be willing to use their portion as a loan loss reserve. We felt like this program had good promise. Unfortunately, the Florida Bank and Trust got acquired by a local credit union, Mid-Florida Credit, and they are, by state statute, aren't permitted to hold public funds. So we've been rethinking this particular program, but it's another approach to economic development, which is this whole issue about access to capital. The last thing I wanted to mention under this economic development initiative, which is not a bullet point, but I would be remiss in not mentioning it, is that we are working through the what's called the Opportunity Zone Program, which is a federal program that went into effect in 2017. It's basically a federal program that designates certain areas of communities for tax incentives that would go towards investments of capital gains in particular projects. And we just had a discussion with the commission on this on Thursday. Probably we'll be looking at looking at some incentives that are local in nature but tied to that opportunity zone geography. The program itself really doesn't have any local administration. It's really a program that was put out by the federal government and really acts as a tax shelter for folks who have money that are interested in doing projects through an opportunity fund in specific geographic areas. So we are still working on that. And so then I wanted to just talk about a few lessons learned from some of these programs. I feel like for the board's consideration, I think the placemaking projects, the investments in land and infrastructure, and laying a platform for economic development, they're important and they can be fruitful, but they take time. So it's something that it takes a long time to put them together, but then there has to be some consistent effort in trying to make them successful over a period of time. I say here in the second bullet point that setting the regulations to facilitate development is necessary, but sometimes not sufficient. In other words, what I'm saying here is that with some of the areas that we've tried to redevelop, I think we've tried to set the platform of regulations for development and redevelopment, which the city can do. And that's often a necessary thing to do, but sometimes it's not enough, really. You have to really look at resources put into those types of projects as well. When setting up an incentive program, I feel like it's very important for the consideration to be mindful of the cost of the administration and the implementation. You know, as I said, some of these programs are long-term and, you know, they need to be managed and administered long-term. And it's important to think about it in that sense, that you have to have a consistent effort over time. I say incentives in and of themselves cannot change market dynamics. What I mean by that is that I feel like most of the work with incentives are really, I see it mostly as trying to fill gaps. I think that the economics of a particular proposition, a lot of times they have to work basically. So the economics have to be right. And then the incentives can come in to try to fill either a financing gap or a talent gap or whatever the gap is. That's at least been some of the experience that we've had with some of these incentives. I forgot the bullet point here, but next bullet is incentives that are linked to performance sometimes are the best. In other words, just ensuring that if you're going to give an incentive that you're going to try to get, you know, you're going to get something back. There's going to be a return on it for the community, basically. I mentioned the qualified industry incentive. That was one where, you know, the city really didn't pay anything out unless the jobs were actually created. And so if they weren't created, the city wasn't on the hook for any local funding. And then finally, it seems to me that we're moving into an area now where maybe addressing talent gaps and building capacity may need to be some of the focus moving forward. In other words, we're hearing a lot from some of our businesses that they need employees, but they can't get them for whatever reason. You know, the actual the training of the employee is that issue. So we're trying to make some connections now between employers and employees in the community, something that the city has not been totally in our sweet spot, but we're getting into that more and more. And then building capacity is really just, I think, about, you know, trying to assist other organizations that are doing this type of work get up and running so that the city doesn't have to take as much of a prominent role in it, and hopefully do some limited investments up front and then be able to step back. So with that, I appreciate the time very much. Thank you.
Good evening, Sarah Vidal, GCRA. So I just wanted to take a few moments just to talk about our types of former incentives that we offered as the Community Redevelopment Agency. Some of these will be very familiar to you. The first.
Hey, Sarah?
Oh,
Can I interrupt briefly? I've got one of our board members who would like to ask a question as we go along, since Eric was just there. Instead of going to the next thing, if you all don't mind, it's probably easier for us to keep our thoughts together since.
Yeah.
Member Brenda Gomez.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Dr. Bredfeld?
Yes, sir.
Thank you. So some lessons learned, if we can go back, so we have past plans, and I don't know, and if this is in your purview, I want to, because you're the Economic Development Director and your capacity. So let's go back to the slide where you had previous program. What worked and what didn't work. I mean, so we have examples of G-Tech, and a lot of these are located on, and where I live, near where I live. So G-Tech is not far from me. The Airport Industrial Park, I've been here, I know you've been here, most of everybody's been here longer than I have, but since for the last 15 years, I know the Airport Industrial Park, that's kind of been existing. Innovation Square has been successful, but looking at things, Dr. Bredfeld, if we're looking at that list, it seems like everything west is successful. Everything east is kind of like, eh. And I guess my question would be, outside of us highlighting what's successful, if that's you, Dr. Bredfeld, or maybe the manager, can somebody shine a light for me? So it just comes off like we're kind of like, well, in other words, we don't have enough money to do the things we want to do. and we don't have the regulation needed to support the facilities in our development plans. So what are we going to do with plans outside of what we have listed to say this is what we can do to turn it around? Because QTI has been around a long time. I know about working food, but it just seems like outside of working food, which is kind of like a social program and a feel-good program, nothing innovative that is touch, see, and feel with an economic impact is being felt east of Main Street. Because all that's Innovation Square. If that makes sense, Dr. Bredfeld, that's not a shot at you, sir. I'm just focusing on things I'm acknowledging, and I hope you're not taking that personal.
No, not at all. I appreciate the question. I mean, I would say that what I was trying to do with these, since the board is going to be deciding on types of incentives that you might be able to put together with respect to the GCRA, the reinvestment plan, I was trying to give you different examples of activities that the city has been engaged in, over a period of time that were different types of incentives, really. So they were either place-based, some state performance incentives, some access to capital incentives, and maybe some building capacity incentives as just sort of like a grouping of a type of incentive. I would say that, these different things, so they represent those different types of incentive types. And then I would say that in terms of doing particular projects, I mean, I feel like that, the efforts at GTEC and maybe the Airport Industrial Park being both on the east side they've been fairly successful in terms of both being sort of employment centers or developing employment centers. They have taken some time to get up and running, but I feel like they both are employment centers for East Gainesville that really East Gainesville can be, pretty proud of. I feel like in terms of the Airport Industrial Park, as I mentioned, I mean, last year we just closed that deal on the FedEx.
Eric,
yeah.
Let me interject a little bit real quick in here. Yeah. Is the manager still on? Mr. Feldman?
Yes, Julian.
Hey, so Mr. Feldman, I have just something. So in our previous slide, I want to kind of relate this back to what we were just talking about. I want to kind of give you a lifeline here. So I'm just acknowledging based off what we're doing, and I give Dr. Bredfeld a lot of deference here. But as just somebody that lives and works here, you're talking about improving the quality of life, Mr. Manager, for the entire city in a strategic plan. So in a strategic plan, when I look at this, I'm seeing areas of opportunity. So for example, Innovation Square is west of us on Main Street. East of us, we have areas of opportunity. So Mr. Manager, you've been here a little over a year now, and I will tell you, GTEC, you're pretty well aware of. That's something I know you and staff are all working on together in a very big and meaningful way. The Airport Industrial Park is an area of opportunity. Something that you could look at, Mr. Manager, that you could tangibly do when we're talking about things, because you also brought it up in your strategic plan. It came to housing and everything. Increasing the tax base and looking at employment centers, right? The employment centers will be your Airport Industrial Park. Something that is not being talked about here that's an opportunity, an area of opportunity, would be Hatchet Creek, Mr. Manager. I'll tell you why. Hatchet Creek is a development that Rob Szymanski is over, that's near there, that's been talked about for years, that's left off the table, that would increase the tax base in an area, and it's also near this board, the GCRA area. Another thing that you could talk about that would affect economic opportunity is what programs are you have in place now, who are we partnering with to bring employment centers, whether it be a distribution center over to the Airport Industrial Park, much like the city of Alachua does. So that's what I would look for. Do you have any input on that?
I do. So we're actually in discussions with the county right now to put some dollars together to create a plan for that, what we're calling the gateway area on North Waldo, which would be north of 39th. That would encompass all that airport industrial area, as well, to see how we could look at putting the right type of infrastructure in to attract the right type of developments. So that's something that right now, and Eric could talk a little bit more about that because he's more hands-on on it than I am. But we're working with the county right now to fund that study to identify the infrastructure where we're going to be equal partners with them to move that forward.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, sir.
Member Mitchell?
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yes, my questions are for Dr. Bredfeld. Thank you for going through the past economic development initiatives and lessons learned. I wanted to ask a question about a couple of the points on the lessons learned. It really relates to the last two. The first one you said, incentives in and of themselves cannot change market dynamics. So my question is, what market dynamics in the context of East Gainesville do we need to be aware of that needs to change to bring to life some economic development? And then my second question is addressing talent gaps and building capacity. Do you have any examples of that, real skill-based things that we should be looking to in terms of future job opportunities? And are we talking high schoolers, college, adults, or does it run the spectrum? That's all.
Yeah, thank you for the questions. On the market dynamics question or point there on lessons learned, the thing I was trying to say there is that, many of these firms that you would want to attract to a particular area, they're looking at data points and demographics that are going to help them make their decision. And some of those things have to do with the income levels. Some of them have to do with actual population. Some of them have to do with trips on the road, basically. And so, when the firm is going to make that decision, they're going to look at that package of things basically and make a decision whether they can, make money in that particular location. Now, fairly recently, we've had some limited success in attracting some retail in that area, and hopefully we'll have some more. So I think that's what's important to understand on the market dynamics side. I think another example of that is we were just having a conversation about it today because the commission is interested in attracting more health services and health access into East Gainesville, which is something that I think would be important. But to tell you the truth, we have to get our arms around what, on the supply side in terms of what an actual supplier of those services would actually need to see in East Gainesville in order for them to want to, build something or bring that service to the east side of town. And so we got to figure out, the demand and the supply side of that, and they do too. And then, there's probably going to be there may be some gaps there that the local government has the capacity to fill. Maybe not, because it may be as I said to the commission last week, it may be a real estate proposition gap that you're looking to fill, but it may be a business operational gap that you're looking to fill, and that might not just be in the cards. So we have to understand those things based on the type of business you're talking about and the industry. So that's kind of what I meant by that bullet point. On the building capacity, I think with that, I'm really kind of saying that being with the city for 18 or 19 years now, I think my sense is that the city just doesn't have, we don't have all the answers on everything. And we just don't have the resources basically to solve all of the issues that may be out there. So I think what we have to do is we have to find partners that may be interested in trying to do those things, whether it's, as I mentioned on the one slide, the Working Food, which is a food system entrepreneurial effort. If it's another group that's interested in building entrepreneurs or doing something that would be sort of talent related, we've done some work with the old Gainesville Area Innovation Network, now called Startup GNV, to try to build those organizations so they can take on those tasks. And they're working with a fairly wide segment of the population. You know, on the Working Food side, it's folks that want to go into those food systems businesses. On the Startup Gainesville, it's the folks that want to go into a lot of technology or information-based businesses. So that's what I kind of meant by building capacity. I hope that answers your questions.
Thank you, Dr. Bradfield. Yeah, that was helpful.
Any other questions from the board? Okay. Ms. Vidal, thank you for your patience. Sorry for the interruption. Please.
No worries.
Go for it.
Okay, thank you. And thank you, Eric, for the presentation. So I'm just going to cover a bunch of information about the former CRA economic development initiatives. We had basically 4 types of economic development initiatives: business development assistance, grants, development agreements, and loans. So next slide, please. Thank you. So business development assistance is a simple, we have a lot of people, a lot of companies and entrepreneurs that come to us that either want to locate in the district or are in the district. And really our main role is to be that glue between the development community and the city. We help developers navigate regulations and introduce them to the right people to speak with, but have also in the past offered design consultation and site selection information. And so we will, continue that business development assistance. I feel like it's one of the core services that we offer to the development community. Next slide. So grants has been an area where we've seen a lot of success, especially in the facade improvement incentive. So that's now called the Business Improvement Grant that you all recently approved. But I wanted to give you just a brief history, especially of that one. That was established in 2009, and we have invested, it looks like $963,000 since then in these facade improvement grants. So combined with the private investment, it's a total of $1.9 million into the district. 53 companies have been approved through that program. So 2 other grant programs that we have are the High Wage Job Creation Incentive Program and the Company Relocation Incentive Program. The High Wage Job Creation Program was established in 2013. We've invested about $350,000 into that program. 3 companies were approved through that program: CHM2 Health, Mindtree, and Shadow Health. But we also had an equal number of companies that were not approved for that. And it was for various things like not meeting the requirements or not meeting a deadline. But the number of jobs created through that program in the district is 143. That program recently went back for some revision. And with the grants, our thinking is that we might focus on the industries that kind of rose to the top in the consolidated plan, which Chelsea will cover soon. But we would recommend the High Wage Job Creation, which is now called the just plain Job Creation Incentive Program. It actually went through an update a few years ago. But if we are to continue with these two, they might be better focused on things like banking, healthcare, and then also potentially food-related businesses. And then company relocation program was established in 2012. Out of this program, there's two companies, I think, that benefited from this program. CHM2 Hill relocated 109 jobs, and Mariu Nutrisciences, of course, at the Cornerstone site, relocated 52 jobs. We also had a few that did not complete the application process, and the total invested was around $200,000. So we think that these two could be continued, but again, it'd be interesting to hear from you all maybe how we might move these forward in a way that supports our new objectives. So next slide, our development agreements. So we used to have the Transformational Projects Incentive Program. We invested over $7.8 million since that Transformational Project Incentive came to be. Some of the properties that benefited from an agreement include Union Street Station, Jefferson on 2nd, University House, the Palms, Camden Courts, and Campus View, to name a few. So this is an annual benefit to the developer as a tax rebate, and the program has since been sunset, but we're still paying off, I think, one or two of these development agreements. And it was very helpful at the beginning, or the early days of the CRA, because we didn't have a lot of funding, right, to incentivize in one payment, and this stretches it across maybe 20, 25 years. And then we have the public-private partnerships, the redevelopment incentives. So we've done a number of these. In fact, I think last time we met, we went over the Hyatt Place, which is one that was recently approved, but to date, we've invested about $3.2 million into redevelopment incentives. And this focuses more on redevelopment projects that that create opportunities for upgrades in the public right-of-way, and then, you know, a request to fund those improvements as a reimbursement to a developer on their project. So that's been very successful, and it seems like a real way for the city to meet some of its goals in the redevelopment district, and not have to perform, but just have a reimbursement at the end of the project for the work completed in the right-of-way. Loans is our next section. And so if you remember, we had a relationship with the National Development Corporation out of New York for the Grow Gainesville program. That program was utilized by two companies, and that was the Reggae Shack and then also the Top, and both used that program to expand their businesses when we were in a recession and the banks really weren't lending for those types of improvements locally. And so since then, they've paid off the loan. The Top did. They got a better rate somewhere else, so they were able to pay that off. And it was a good program, but it was a lot to manage. I know Eric spoke a little bit about how some programs take a little bit more administrative time. So that would be kind of my feedback on that one. We have sunset this, and then the Capital Access Program was intended to assist with loans by assisting with the 10% of borrowers' equity to help acquire 40% from a 504 approved loan. So that program actually never got off the ground. It wasn't utilized at all. So that's something to be thinking about if we move forward with some sort of loans Would they be for specific industries or, fund specific things like equipment or expansions and that type of thing. So I hope that was helpful in just kind of giving you an update on the programs that we've utilized before. And I'm going to turn it over to Chelsea now, who's going to really hone in on our consolidated plan and the feedback that we got towards economic development and some ideas that we've received through the planning process.
Before you run off, Ms. Vidal, we might have some questions from the board.
Okay.
Mr. Brenda Gomez has one.
Ms. Vidal?
Yes.
Okay, so your loan programs, so you said these are both sunsetted programs, the Grow Gainesville program and the Capital Access program? So you said, if I'm not mistaken, if I heard you correctly, the Top Restaurant was one and the Reggae Shack was the other during the session? Is that correct? Okay.
Correct.
Okay. And so you said the Top paid back, how did that go? I'm sorry.
So they ended up, they got a better rate at a bank locally. And so they paid off their Grow Gainesville loan.
Okay. Do we have any examples of something similar to this or something that we could possibly do again? And since we're probably in a worse of a possible recession with the pandemic going on?
Yeah, so that's part of, what we're doing today is coming back to you all to talk about what we learned from the planning process and kind of what you all as our stakeholders and the communities we serve really wanted to see and felt like, might help move the district to a tipping point, where we're really able to meet the needs of our small businesses and in the area and also redevelopment. So we would like your feedback on that. And Chelsea's going to present the ideas and somewhat of the direction that we're moving in. Also, you brought up and Eric brought up the East Gainesville Incentivized Development Plan and that partnership that Lee spoke about with the county and the chamber and other agencies, I think is going to really help us isolate kind of the market conditions that Eric mentioned and how we might kind of flip the script on that. And so I believe out of that effort as well, we'll come back with some program ideas.
Well, Ms. Vidal, one thing, and I won't keep, I promise this is after, and I don't want to steal Chelsea's thunder, but if it is something for me that I would be interested in, something that's similar to the Grow Gainesville or Capital Access program, would be something for the eastern part of our city and downtown. So if that's within there or you have that, that's going to be my 2 cents, and I digress with that. And I look forward to hearing what Chelsea has to say.
Thank you.
All right, Member Mitchell.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Sarah. I have just a couple of questions. One is in regards to the marketing effort with these programs that existed. How did the CH2M Hill deal happen? Did they find you? Did you find them? Because my concern in going forward is like, how do we proactively market this stuff in terms of reaching out to potential client businesses, that is. And the second deal is, and Chelsea's probably going to get into a little bit of this, but like some of these funding programs, perhaps we can get state and federal leveraging in terms of supported funds, matching funds, kind of stack some of that maybe. And that's all.
All right. Another one? You promised.
Yeah, I asked a question about the marketing efforts.
Yeah, please.
For
Okay, it's Sarah. I thought you did. I thought that was a question. So thank you for asking that. When those programs came about, we did marketing, but I really don't think it was the push that we needed. I remember did a package around the incentives that we offered that we used when meetings were requested, for either projects that were coming to town or, just anyone that was kind of looking for incentives. But I think, a key partner in that was also the chamber, because they're always looking to put together packages for kind of the larger potential deals coming to town. So I can tell you this, that now we're all working together, and in the past I hadn't really seen that. And so, for instance, the effort with the East Gainesville Waldo Road corridor, I think is going to be a really good effort and help us kind of target businesses along that corridor and the other major corridors identified in the plan. But you're right, we do need to market it better. And we're open to your feedback on that tonight, but we'll also be strategizing, once we have the new programs to roll out. The Business Improvement Grant Program, when it was rolled out, we did, a press release, social media, and I believe, and Tricia can confirm this for me, but we're working on postcards to go to all the businesses along our major corridors. So via direct mail.
That's correct.
I believe also we are advertising our business improvement grant in some of the local magazines. I forget, Virginia Grants magazine, and there's another one. Tricia, maybe you can help me out. We're
Minority Business Listing is one.
Thank you.
Yeah.
So those two magazines as well, we're going to be advertising the programs that have been approved so far.
Glad to hear that there's some synergy and development between you and the chamber and some other entities in town that traditionally haven't really worked or engaged with GCRA. I'm glad to hear that. And thank you, Sarah.
You're welcome.
Sarah,
Yes.
Ms. Vidal, I promised I was going to, that was my last question, but Member Mitchell made me ask another question. I forgot about. Member Mitchell brought up something I thought was very poignant. The C2HM Hill building, as well as the Nationwide building, when those were replaced and those were filled, the city lost tax revenue or tax base. When we're getting these properties and we're inviting other companies to come in, how are we going to recuperate that? Because like with Nationwide, that necessarily isn't yours, but UF took over the C2HM Hill building, and UF Health took over Nationwide. That's loss of tax revenue because it's off the tax rolls now. That's an impact. So that's a major economic impact. How do we look at putting stuff on the tax rolls?
Yeah, that's a good question. I mean, those are two instances where I believe both of those buildings were listed for lease or sale, and in the private sector, business or University of Florida, got control of those two. And I don't know if both of them are owned or not. I actually don't have the details, but so we would only incentivize companies that were going to be on the tax rolls. So the incentives are not for instance, the University of Florida or Santa Fe College or those entities. They're excluded.
I'm done.
Any other board questions for Ms. Vidal? All right, thank you, Ms. Vidal.
You're welcome.
Thank you, everybody. I guess now I'll move on to talk about what the GCRA 10-year plan says about economic development. If you go to page 81, just maybe after this meeting, you'll find that the prerogative of the GCRA is to seek economic development that increases employment levels, raises the tax base, and improves the standard of living for residents. Specific elements that we're trying to build with economic development includes business recruitment, commercial building facade, which is a program we actually have in progress that is listed in the plan, job training programs, local business incentives, public-private partnerships, and small business startup financial assistance. So today, what we're seeking is what type of business and what type of businesses do we want to support, and what type of assistance do we want to provide to our businesses in order to meet this criteria. So now I'm going to talk a little bit about what it says in our community reinvestment plan, and specifically what the community said during our community engagement. So time and time again, one of the top things that came up when people were asked what needs to be protected was local businesses. People really felt that the local businesses was an asset to their districts. In the downtown and east side, respondents also wrote that their top objectives included economic development and increasing commercial activities in their districts. And the type of businesses that were desired, that respondents said, were food markets, restaurants, medical facilities, banking facilities, and large employers within the district. Specifically, the community requested some of these programs. The first is an interesting concept. It would be a vacant storefront program. And that would be the GCRA would work with landowners to turn their vacant commercial building storefronts into revolving art galleries. This helps activate the area and adds to the culture of a community. The second would be a small business recruitment programs. Specifically, we're interested in facilitating community requests and when we do business recruitment, look at food or farmers markets type of businesses or healthcare services and facilities. The next is people are looking for small, local, diverse business assistance. They want to incentivize businesses to stay and grow within the GCRA district, specifically small businesses. And second would be workforce education program. And one way to partner with this would be, as we've discussed throughout this evening, would be to continue to partner with the city and to reposition GTEC as an economic development center. And again, I want to add that many of these programs that we're working on, specifically GTEC, is already underway in a certain degree by staff. These community requests were then codified into the plan and GCRA strategies, and they include new programs, revised old programs, and work at the GTEC and Cornerstone site. In April, we will return to the advisory board about how to reposition GTEC. This is going to be a separate thing. Currently, we're working with a consultant on what type of programs we could grow out of GTEC. And I also want to remind you just a little bit, I know Mr. Feldman had talked earlier about the city strategic plan goal number 4, which is to create a resilient local economy. But some of the objectives under that goal would be to small business retention and growth, job training and career development, and again, future direction of GTEC, which I know I've mentioned many times. So a few weeks ago, staff sent out a survey to Gainesville Care applicants. That was the COVID relief program that we created in April. We had limited responses, so we're going to be sending this again out to all the businesses in the GCRA corridors and all the downtown businesses. We're going to be sending postcards and emailing the survey out to begin engagement on economic development. Specifically, we're going to be asking businesses about how COVID has affected their business so we can determine what their future needs could be. And our next GCRA advisory board meeting, if we have the results in, enough results in, we'll present and discuss with you what the community has. All right, given that, let's move on to discussion on this item. I hope our hope is to have a conversation about incentives we can either continue or create these next years. Some open-ended questions I kind of crafted. I just kind of want to get you guys thinking and let you guys know what we're looking for is what type of businesses do we want to target and support? What sort of grants and incentives would help a business stay and grow within the district? And number 3, how do you see business needs changing over the next year? All right, thank you. I will now leave the floor open to the chair.
All right, Member Seawright had a question?
Yeah, I want to go back to, it was just something I heard, I just want to talk on it a little. I didn't talk about it, I want to go back and get it to understand. Under the community request, you said something about a vacant storefront program. Would you go back over, because I thought I heard you say a mobile art, you want all the vacant storefronts to be mobile art communities, or I might have heard that wrong, just.
No, you didn't.
Okay, just, so somebody wanna, what was that, what was that, explain that community request.
Yeah, so we, the request is to make things look less abandoned, pretty much make things look less blighted, which can in turn help make a place feel more vibrant and kind of, it's a small thing, but it can kind of help the perception of economic resiliency. And so for example, if someone has property and there's no business in it, you know, it can make a street look run down. So we would be partnering with a local art group, and we would have art in the window, local art in the windows to kind of just make the area feel less blighted.
Oh, okay. That cleared up something, because I what I thought was is y'all would get ready to start having mobile art museums all over in the vacant store. That's why I wanted to clarify what were you saying. So you're saying basically when a building is vacant, you would get local artists or a different person to come in to just make it look nice until it's getting ready to be used again.
Correct. Yes.
Okay.
Correct.
Thank you.
All right, Member Bush.
Yes, thank you. My question was pertaining to the agenda item itself. It referred to, under the fiscal note, that there was $600,000 dedicated to, budgeted in this fiscal year for these opportunities. I wanted to ask if there's a current allocation of those $600,000. Are there general buckets that these are already programmed into, or is that the feedback that you're seeking from us today?
So that's the feedback we're looking, how should we spend? So we have $600,000 in that bucket of finance programs. So we can spend that on any economic development finance program. So that's what we're looking for. What type of programs do we want to create? And that number could increase in the future, or just depending what we come up with.
Okay, if I may continue. Thank you. If that's the case, then, I think a couple of things. Having a really, I guess, thoughtful approach to economic development incentives, makes sense. I think that, you have to try and put money into these different programs like the place-based that Eric was talking about, versus the people-oriented pieces versus the industry-specific pieces. It's not a, one-size-fits-all, as you well all know. So I think having a more strategic discussion around, general pockets of how we would like to see the allocations made might be useful. At least just for thinking about, 30% in place-based versus 30% in people versus 30% in, business specific. I don't know if those are the right allocations, but it might help us as a board to kind of get some juices flowing if we can think more broadly about, conceptually where we want to make investments instead of jumping straight down into specific programs. I would say that just in general, the relocation incentives, from my experience, from what I've seen in the field, is that those tend not to last for very long. After the entity relocates, oftentimes they don't necessarily stay beyond that period of window after the incentive runs out. I would really encourage all of us to continue to work with the Chamber of Commerce and others in the community that, you know, they've got a 2025 plan in place. Eric O'Day, the president of the chamber. And I think that they've got some good thinking around where to make these investments from an industry perspective to best kind of enhance what our community has to offer. So instead of recreating the wheel, I guess I would just think about how we can, you know, support the entities that whose main function is economic development, not recreate the wheel, and also think about the general allocation of, you know, do we want to make a investment in people, you know, places, or specific industry as a general concept. Those are my comments. Thank you.
Do you need an answer, or you're good?
Yep.
All right, Member Seawright.
Yes, I kind of want to piggyback on where what Ms. Bush was saying to some degree. I do agree that I think we should be working with some of the organizations that are already doing some of these things, because there's so many that I'm finding that are doing a lot of the same stuff that we're trying to do, and maybe we could just enhance some of their programs. But I will say I do want us to look at the economic development elements, like the business recruitment, the job training creation. I'm not sure if Mr. Bretfeld is still on the line, but I don't know. There was a program that I know was joint at the time. I think it was the city and Santa Fe and the chamber. I'm not sure, but it was called Next Level. And I remember that program because it did some of these very things, and it was a micro entrepreneurship program. And I thought that program was, and at the time, it was prior to my city days. I was working for the consulting firm that was assisting with that program, and I thought it did a very good job. And I know 3 of those businesses that we helped during that time are not only still thriving in Gainesville, but they have moved on to become. I know one of them was Coconuts, and Coconuts used to be was a barber shop when it started. And through the micro entrepreneurship program, they were able to get a little bit of seed funding, and now they are a barber school, and so they're doing adding to the economics of our community. So I want to see if we only have $600,000, and I'm not 100% sure about all the things that the chambers are doing. I do know they do have programs, but if they have a program that's like the Next Level program. Because my concern is there are a lot of programs at the chamber that I know they are doing, but it doesn't seem to really help those businesses in East Gainesville to a degree. And I don't think it's not the chamber's fault. I just think that just some of the way that even the programs that CRA had, the relocation program, and you had to be a certain size, and a lot of the smaller businesses in the eastern portion of Gainesville weren't the size, so they couldn't access the relocation program anyway. So just kind of, if we looking as we move forward, and we do work with the chamber or whomever, that we look at businesses that aren't Kim Two Hill and aren't Mario, but that we can start helping some of these smaller businesses. And it might be through us doing smaller grants like the micro entrepreneur program. And so I didn't know if Mr. Bradford was on that, but I knew he probably might be the only person that would remember that program.
Okay.
That's it.
Good.
Thank you.
All right. Mr. Grundy Gomez.
Well, Member Seawright hit the nail right on the head, but she was, I think, being modest in some of her comments when it comes to the chamber. Chelsea, you were asking wanting some feedback. I hear a lot of the level of discussion about having relationships and partnerships. Partnerships are important when they are inclusive of all people, when they are inclusive of the entire community. The chamber historically has not had a great record when it's come to the eastern part of our city, especially when it comes to the African American, Black and brown population of the community. That's just the chamber's record. The data is what it is, the facts are what they are, and the record is what it is historically. And people can say, they can show you better than they can tell you. And what they've showed us is that their interest has been Alachua and the western part of our city. So Chelsea, I guess my feedback, can you hear me okay, Chelsea?
Yes.
My feedback to you, Ms. Vidal, to Dr. Bredfeld, and to the manager would be, if we're going to create a partnership with the chamber, fine, My question is, how is that going to benefit our mission as a CRA when our focus is on developing our urban core? Our focus is on developing the eastern part of our city. We must look at the history of that relationship because it's not been a good one. If we look into the city of Alachua, we see lots of stuff going on. We see lots of interest. So I believe people what they do and not just what they say. That's going to be my 2 cents regarding the chamber. Moving on to your questions, Chelsea, your guided questions and what you want from us. Number one, the feedback I gave you earlier about what we should do. I don't know if you heard me well. As long as that program, and that was related to you and Dr. Bredfeld, about how that synergy is going to be created with the eastern part of our city when you come up with some of these programs. That said, some things I would like to see. I appreciate Member Seawright's question because I was concerned about the mobile art or whatever it was going to be, but I'm glad to know it's not that, so I can move on from that. But when it comes to bringing business in here, our community, Chelsea, is suffering from a lack of vision. When I say our community, I'm talking about the area focusing on the eastern part of our city. We don't seem to lack vision when it comes to our midtown or our western part of our town. It seems like we have pie in the sky and everything goes. But when it comes to the eastern part, what we see is a devolution of, well, we'll just put some paint up here until things maybe come. What I'm going to ask us to do is challenge ourselves. Let's dig into the best and deepest parts of ourselves. So I'm also talking to the manager right now, to Dr. Bredfeld right now, to Ms. Vidal right now. I know Ms. Bowie already knows. But see, we also have a great resource in our assistant city manager and Ms. Bowie. And I'm going to tell you why. Ms. Bowie was on the chamber. Ms. Bowie has a record of economic development. We must use the resources that we have at our disposal, folks. We don't have to go far. We don't have to spend dollars. We have to spend our resources for what we have. You all have a talented group of people that are not only talented, but know what they're doing, know how to grow economies. So Chelsea, you know what I mean? I don't know if that makes sense to you. You don't have to go very far. You can just say, hey, Sarah, I need to set up a meeting. And she's right there. And to Mr. Feldman, he doesn't have to go far. He can pick up the telephone. Manager Bowie. We don't have to have a study done. It seems like our city has this allergy to when it comes to our side of the community, and it wants to study things. It studies things when it doesn't want to do something. So here's what we could do, Chelsea. Like for our airport industrial area, which is in our resource area, you know what we could do? We should travel and say, you know what, we can do a perfect synergy here. Watch this. We already know we have food deserts, right, Chelsea, in our city, in this area? So watch this. I have a proposal. If we took a trip up north, and I think Mr. Feldman might know this particular grocer I'm about to name, and it doesn't have to be this particular grocer. It could be anyone, but the point is it's somebody new and different. If we looked at filling our airport industrial center with a distribution center from a grocer that's not here yet, namely like Wegmans. Wegmans is a grocer that some of you may be familiar with and some of you may not. I believe Mr. Feldman would be familiar with them. They would be big on our community values because they're a family-owned grocer. They have a lot of our community values. It would be a new grocery store that would be expanding into the South. Does it have to be that? That's the kind of innovative thinking that we have to think. Not only are we getting a new grocery store, we're getting a distribution center. They could locate here in North Central Florida and expand out to other areas. That's number one. Number two, instead of just focusing on little things that we can build, whether it's little grocery stores, or excuse me, not grocery stores, little restaurants here in East Gainesville, let's look at bringing employers here. How do we attract our employers? What are we doing in a meaningful way, just like we're doing in West Gainesville? We are doing that. We are doing that as a city. And it takes a will to do it. I see a will when it comes to the western part. And I see a lack of will when it comes to the eastern part. The lack of will comes in the form of what we do is we hide it under the guise of, well, we need affordable housing. well, all we're going to do for East Gainesville is affordable housing because that's what we're going to do, and we're going to forget the jobs. The jobs are going to go west, so folks have to travel 35, 45, 50 minutes to go somewhere else. So I would say, what kind of grants and incentives? The grants and incentives we should do is to do what I just said. Number one, just like in the Airport Industrial Center, I hope Mr. Bredfeld heard what I just said. I hope the manager just heard what I said, because I'm being I'm offering solution. Those are tangible things that we could do, and I didn't. That's right off the top of my head. We have a lot of opportunity in the East to do big things, and to make transformative change and transmogrify a community to get rid of urban blight. We can do infill development, right? We can do those things. So how do I see business needs changing over the next year? Number one, we're in a new normal with this pandemic. So probably things right now when it comes to real estate, it's a perfect time to buy a home. Commercially, I'm going to defer to people with real estate experiences, hint, hint, hint. For those of you that have that real estate experience, I don't know, so I defer to a lot of you. But what can we do? I think we all need to say, I'm going to get with Mr. Feldman, I'm going to get with Ms. Bowie, and we're going to make a team effort to say, we don't need to hire people from out of town. Let's use the talent that we have here. So what can we do to grow? And I'm going to share with you what that kind of change does. Because Chelsea, you're going to see in a minute when I do my presentation of why things can happen in areas that look like East Gainesville. They say things that don't happen. That comes from ill-conceived notions, illicit bias, implicit bias, and really a systemic issue of racism when it comes to wanting to have things happen here. And Birmingham is a prime example of why things can change effectively and have massive economic impact. It is real. So did I give you enough there to work with, Chelsea?
Yes, thank you.
Okay, I digress. I'm done.
Member Mitchell?
Mr. Chair. Thank you, Chelsea. I'm not gonna, remember Grandy said a lot, and I'm just gonna probably pop shot a little bit of what he said. But I wanna go back to something that Dr. Bredfeld said in regards to market dynamics. And it's clear that the market dynamics of East Gainesville is different from the market dynamics of the West and even portions of downtown. And it is attributed to systemic racism. It is attributed to the fact of some of the things that he mentioned. We can see systemic racism in the terms of income levels, reasons people even have to go to East Gainesville. When we talk about trips on roads, we're looking at a demographic here, the points that Dr. Bredfeld brought up. And so if any real change is going to have to happen, it's going to have to happen within our community. And the partners that we have, they have to see our community different. And it's upon us as a board and upon the GCRA to help them see our community different. Because if they don't begin seeing our community different, we're just going to be doing the same things that we've been doing over and over and over again. So to the first question, what type of business do we want to target and support? I've always been a big proponent of bringing banking over to, significant banking over to East Gainesville. I've personally tried to reach out to different banks to see if they would be interested in parking on the Cornerstone property. I think that we should be looking at that because when we look at banks, they're the center of, they're somewhat of a center of economic development. People want to buy homes, people want to go to school, people want to buy cars, you know, people have their accounts there, they're parking their money there. And if we can form a community, some type of community make a bank that would be willing to become a partner and get the vision of what we're trying to do here in East Gainesville, I think that would be a good thing. Grants and incentives, I'll come back to you on that, but I definitely think that whatever we do, we should seek out state and federal backing for whatever we do to kind of supersize those funds. How do we see something that Member Grundy's talked about with bringing employers? Yeah, that's important. But what I'd also like to see is that when we bring these employers here, that we get a commitment from them to employ from the community. Maybe a percentage base of employment from the community where they're coming. We don't want to see a lot of people coming from West Side to get the jobs of where we're building these structures. We want to see a lot of people in the community getting jobs here, and commitments to training people in the community to fill those gaps. How do we see the business needs changing over the next year? I think if anybody in this day and age is going to start a business, we may have concerns with people needing help with scaling their business as things get back to normal. So we want to pay attention to that, helping people scale their businesses. And that's all I have.
Okay. Mr. Gomez?
Hey, Chelsea, I forgot one more thing. This one would be kind of for Chelsea, Ms. Vidal, Mr. Feldman, if you can hear me, Dr. Bradfeld, and Ms. Bowie. I want to give you all something that I don't think is on your radar screen. I don't know if you're familiar with it, but Mr. Manager, there's something called the Manchester Bidwell Center. Are any of you familiar with that? I can't hear you.
They're nodding yes.
They're nodding yes.
Yes,
Yes.
I'm familiar with it.
The Manchester Bidwell Center is in Pittsburgh. A person, myself, and I believe one of the city commissioners would know very well a lot about this. You may want to add this to the repertoire as something that has been highly effective in a community and probably would be highly effective in our city here to start raising our levels up. I don't know if it could be done, but we got to try to do something different. And any of your thoughts, it's just an idea. And
it is something that we've been looking at. The CRA, I'm sorry, not the CRA, the city's general fund contributed $30,000 to an initiative to do the feasibility study on that. I believe the county has joined with the same commitment. The chamber raised some money as well. So the chamber right now has the lead on conducting that feasibility study. There's a certain system you have to go through in order to participate in the Bidwell Center program. So that is something we're supporting through the chamber's efforts.
Thank you, Mr. Manager.
And just so comment on Wegmans, I have had a discussion with Wegmans. Unfortunately, their corporate plan doesn't have them going below North Carolina at this point.
Well, I'm disappointed, darn.
I was too, so.
Any other board comments, questions? I don't see any hands up from the public. I'll remind you, if you're on your phone, dial *9. All right, I still don't see any hands up. So let's move on to the Infinity line.
We need a vote. We're going to need a vote on that. Do we have quorum?
We do not. So pass that item. We can go to Birmingham Crossplex visit.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So my name is Armando Grundy Gomez, and I am presenting to you all about our trip to trip I recently took. This was a trip to the Birmingham Crossplex. This was something that I wanted us to all, or some of us, but because we all couldn't because of COVID-19. So I said I would go. I volunteered. This is before we go, I'll say next slide, but I want you to look at this. So I'm going to give you, this is the Birmingham Crossplex, and I'm going to go into in depth. Next slide. I'm going to go into depth about what it is. So the trip was from January 5th through the 9th, and obviously we know what happened the day of the 6th. I was actually touring the day of the 6th, and all of us know what happened on January 6th. It was not a very fun day. Our tour guide was the Honorable Faye Oates, who is the former director of the Crossplex. She now works for the city of Birmingham. It's Sports and Entertainment Division. So the Crossplex also includes the Bill Harris Arena. We're going to talk about it. Next slide. So I want to give a historical context, the purpose of the Birmingham visit, the synergies of Birmingham with East Gainesville. So number one, the purpose of the visit was we're going to have a conversation. All of us have, as a board, have been wanting to have a conversation at a higher level, in a more meaningful and effective way when it comes to having a discussion on what we do at 8th and Waldo, what we start doing in East Gainesville, how we start moving forward and having tangible ideas rather than just having all of these ideas that are hodgepodge and they lack imagination, they lack innovation, they lack much thought. And I'll tell you what really brought this to attention. We all were sitting up here when staff brought to us the thing was kind of a hodgepodge of what was brought to us on 8th and Waldo. Well, it was kind of, let's just take a 71-year-old football stadium, put some paint on it, a little bit of brick and mortar and some stuff, make it look nice. Basically, essentially, what is that doing? But then when we hear, what also happened during that presentation? What happened was the rug was pulled out from under. It lacks trust. It lacked transparency. Why? The county commission took the fairgrounds from a community and promised that it would leave the event center. We know historically that has also, the rug has been pulled out. Lack of promises once again. And now it's the city doing the same thing again. When the county said, we're going to drop these $78 million for us to do something to transform something for a community that has not had change, because it just seems like it keeps taking away and we'll get back to you. Well, we'll get back to you. This is where we're talking about the synergies of Birmingham and East Gainesville. Very similar things. So this particular site of the Birmingham Crossplex was on the site of the Alabama State Fairgrounds in Birmingham. Well, why is that important? You say, well, that's a great place, right? It's great to have the Alabama Fairgrounds there. Everybody can go, ride all the rides, have a good old time, unless you look like Member Mitchell, Member Seawright, or myself. Member Bush, you'd have been fine. Member Merritt couldn't even go. Doesn't matter. Why? Simply because of the color of our skin. We could not attend there. Guess where this was located at? In a community that looked like Member Seawright, Member Mitchell, Member Merritt, myself, and a predominantly African-American community. It was a segregated fairgrounds. Isn't that really rich? Next slide. This is the Alabama State Fairgrounds. I put it in black and white for a very good reason. This is it. Take a good look. The statue, like, yes. Next slide. This is the Crossplex. So on the grounds of hate is now a place of unity and prosperity. This is the Birmingham Crossplex. It's a 750,000 square foot multi-purpose center. Now, you're probably saying, we can't do that here. I'm not asking us to do that here. I'm asking us to have imagination. I'm asking for us to dig deep and think. What I'm asking us to do is, we may not be able to do this, but we can probably do something on a small scale. It didn't even have to be this. I'm saying we don't need to do what we saw then. By the way, this is on the site of the Alabama Fairgrounds in a predominantly black neighborhood. Next slide. We're going to talk about how prosperous it is. Very. So that's the inside. And yes, I took the pictures. Welcome to the Crossplex. And when I tell you it's amazing, it's magnanimous, it absolutely, everything, and if Member Bowie comes on, she can definitely articulate it much more, even better than I can. Next slide. I said Member Bowie, Assistant City Manager Bowie, excuse me. This is the indoor track and field. So it's a rubberized indoor track. By the way, Mondo rubberized indoor track from Italy. It also can raise on the turns. It can also host volleyball events. And when I tell you It's not just hosting these events. They have events from colleges all over the country that come here. They are busy all the time. We're going to get into those graphics in a minute. Next slide. That's the Olympic-size heated indoor swimming pool. You think, hey, the community can go there. No. High schools, all public high schools in the city of Birmingham use that for free. Don't pay. We say, well, who does pay? Somebody's got to pay. You're right. Colleges pay. Private events pay. Next slide. So some fun facts. Again, so in 2011, the Birmingham Crossplex is a 750,000 square foot multi-purpose athletic field and meeting facility on 80 acres. Well, we have 45 usable acres if we do it right here. So we obviously can't do that to that level here, but we can do something, right? I'm proving it to you now. Located in Birmingham. So it's a world-class facility. It boasts a 6-lane Mondo hydraulic track, and it is a hydraulic track, 8-lane straightaway, sprint and hurdles, one of the 8 track lanes in the United States. And when I tell you it is amazing, it is breathtaking. I did take a member of the public, or one of our residents from East Gainesville, with me to also see this, and it was. Next slide. Some more fun facts. The track surface versatility allows the conversion into 9 volleyball courts when the conclusion of indoor track season is over. Again, things that are constantly being used. When track is over, you have something else being used, multi-purpose. The Crossplex is an indoor and track volleyball facility that holds 4,000 spectators, including 7 VIP suites. By the way, those VIP suites, they have involved public-private partnerships and businesses, which we're going to get to in a second, that are using them. And it accommodates 22 spectators. Absolutely amazing. Next slide. So the Olympic-sized pool is a 50-meter indoor pool designed by Councilman Hunsicker. It has both yards and meter configuration, locker rooms, multi-purpose classrooms that can accommodate up to 1,300 spectators. And it was also extremely warm in there, extremely warm. So when they're getting out of the pool, they're not cold. It was warm in that pool area. Next slide. So connected immediately to the Crossplex, you saw the Crossplex building was the Bill Harris Arena. Some of you heard me talk about taking and transforming Citizens Field into an arena. The reason I'm bringing up the arena before I go into it is why an arena and not just the capital use of a football stadium? Number one is the O'Connell Center is not the city of Gainesville's. The O'Connell Center is UF's. And for all the price tag that they put on that, it only holds 10,000, right? So for all that money, we have no destination place to call our own. We need a destination place in the city of Gainesville. I submit to you that just like Heartwood is a catalyst for multi-purpose development for homes for people to come in to get new state-of-the-art housing that have previously been denied housing, I'm telling you 8th and Waldo needs to be the catalyst to develop a project to attract business. And this is why. So the Bill Harris Arena, which is connected to the Crossplex, seats 5,000, which it's been there for ages and ages and ages. It underwent $3 million in renovation with over 20,000 square feet of floor space. The arena hosts a variety of events and concerts, as well as locker rooms, training rooms, meeting space, hospitality space, press box, overlooks the venue floor. We need that to hold trade shows or whatever here in Gainesville. We need a destination place. Next slide. This is the arena right here. This is one shot of it. Next slide. Next slide. So the beginning, the Crossplex opened in August of 2011. The first event was held in November of 2011. And 11 and 12, the first competition year, the Crossplex hosted 40 events in 61 days. 40 events in 61 days. What does that mean? That's important. And when you go through it, the importance is going to be when you build something of this magnitude, who you hire to do and handle your event is going to be important. How it's marketed and how it's done, because that's where the business comes in. So the economic impact from 2011 and 12 was approximately $10 million. I can tell you those 2019 numbers are a little over 30 million in local impact, in 10 years. That is transformative to a community. The Fairmount and member or Assistant City Manager Bowie can correct me if I get this neighborhood wrong, and hopefully she comes on camera to correct me. The Fairmount or Fairview neighborhood that this is surrounded by is an area much similar to the city of Gainesville. She's popping on. She's smiling ear to ear. Am
You
I
got it correct. Yeah, you are correct. Yeah.
Okay.
It's yes, and more specifically, I think the neighborhood is West End, which is the most densely
Correct. Thank you.
populated in zip code in the state. Yeah,
Thank you very much, Manager Bowie. So, next slide. So these are some of the numbers. So orange is going to be event days, and blue is going to be number of events. I probably could have used a different color code, you all. So 2011-12, you had 48 to 69. 2013, you had 64 events and 93 event days. 2014, you had 170 events, 252 event days. 2015, you had 185 events, 270 event days. You see it's growing. And we're not using 2020 because obviously we know why it fell off, right? We're not going to use, nobody could have predicted that. So we use 2019 as the best data of where we could see that bell curve going. Next slide. So these are another site that's going to have participants, spectators, and total. I will make sure that all of you get this slide so that you can look through this. I'm not going to go through each one of these, but you can see the growth of participants in blue, spectators, and then you have total. So the green is total. So total number of both combination that has grown since that time. So participants to spectators. And that is a huge growth of opportunity. Think of who we can attract if we do something on this level. Who can we attract? Whether that be trade shows, but it's a true multi-purpose facility, a true destination place here. And I'm tying that into what we could do here. Next slide. So the annual, this is where again, I always talk about, remember I talked about that magical thing of return on investment? Return on investment is extremely important, not just where when we say return on investment, it makes people feel good, it stabilizes the neighborhood. No. When I talk about return on investment, rubber meets the road, dollars, who's affecting people spending dollars in your community, those dollars circulating in your community, the impact, because at the end of the day, the folks up here that are at that dais that have to make that decision, and the people that are out here, well, how is this making a difference in people's lives? Not just in making them feel good, but is it affecting the businesses it surrounds? Is it contributing to the local economy? I'm telling you, this does, and I'm going to prove it to you in a second. In 2011, 10 million, 2013, 15 million, 2014, almost 51 million, 2015, 60 million, and it keeps going and going and going. Now, I told you 30 million in the local impact. What did I mean by that? See, Armando, you said 30 million locally. Locally in that community, that neighborhood, that Miss Bowie, the West End, Fairmount. Here's why. Before I go to the next slide, I'm not mistaken. You have had new businesses developing in the neighborhood that never existed before. Manager Bowie, if you could come on and confirm this for me. You have a new hotel directly in that community that I saw, Comfort Inn, right outside of it. Manager Bowie, is it an accurate statement that it has had a tremendous effect in West End and the surrounding businesses in that community, restaurants, et cetera, and new businesses opening? You're on mute.
I'm sorry, I was saying I would definitely say transformative. I mean, clearly COVID has really impacted the private development. It took a decade for that development to be built around the Crossplex, but in an area where people said they would never build because no one would ever come, wasn't the case. When it was all said and done, the hotels, you mentioned the restaurants, and Starbucks actually put their training facility out there so that they could train all of the employees throughout the Birmingham metropolitan area. Clearly, Birmingham has been severely impacted by the downturn with revenue from the sales tax. But how Crossplex obviously is a crown jewel and continues to be an investment that allows the city to think simultaneously about downtown and then out in the neighborhoods, right? Because that was the whole point of the Crossplex project, is to do something out in the neighborhoods so that all of the tourist attraction dollars, sightseeing revenue, all of the economic development money wasn't being spent just in the downtown core.
Thank you, Manager Bullard. So, again, remember when I was talking with Chelsea earlier about how we could do synergy projects with the airport industrial complex, whether it be just not only just bringing a local grocer here, she said Starbucks bought their training facility here to Birmingham, an area where it said, we can't develop there. So just another fun fact, African Americans are the largest consumer of goods in the United States, boasting $1.8 trillion. Whoever tells you that nothing can happen, I'm telling you that this disproves that. I'm telling you, for all of the rigmarole that this city talks about with equity, inclusion, and diversity, all the rhetoric and minutia that we hear all the time from up here, all the time, we always hear it. Equity, diversity, inclusion, equity, diversity, inclusion, or balance, or affordable housing. And all of it translates to what? A big fat zero, nothingness. And how do we know that? You can show us better than you tell us. And you know how you show us? I'm going to show you how they show us right now. The event center is going where? It's going over to the west side. Where do they show us every time we hear it? Every time we hear that nothing can be done, they show us because they bring us back what we saw from staff, which is we're going to put up senior housing, or we're going to put up we're not going to have any, we're going to lack innovation, we're going to lack forethought. We don't really care. They can deal with it. Because people don't care. They can show you better than they can tell you. And here's what I'm telling you right now. This is proof that we need to say we're not putting up with this anymore. I'm telling you what we saw. You can touch, feel, and see. And when you go to those local businesses who are proud to have the crossplex, it is not only a part of the neighborhood. If it was gone, you would have a problem. Those folks love when those visitors. People get lost. Matter of fact, I heard a story from one of the Birmingham police officers. One of the cross-country runners got lost in the neighborhood. One of the neighbors called up and said, I think somebody's lost. And they came and went and got him, and so they took him back to the crossplex. This is how proud that neighborhood. And we know how proud of a community for those of us that live in the East Side. And we're not talking about our brothers and sisters of the lighter hue. We're just saying, I'm saying to us as a board, we have to start standing up and saying, when is enough enough? This is enough. This is why it's enough. Next slide. So since 2011, 381,500 spectators and participants have visited the Birmingham Crossplex and Bill Harris Arena. Approximately 35% traveled 3 or more hours. Matter of fact, from here to Birmingham is about 3.5, 4 hours, and I forgot, or a little bit longer, maybe 5 hours actually. Y'all forgive me. Just when you're taking back roads, you lose track. Next slide. So 8th and Waldo, how does this project relate to 8th and Waldo? I think we've been talking throughout the slide where I don't need to tell you anymore. I think you can let this marinate and you can figure it out for yourself. Next slide. I want us to have discussion, but before we have discussion, what I want us to really think about, there was a slide that I wanted to, Tricia, there was a slide I wanted to bring up for us that I don't know if it's on there.
Try
Tricia,
advancing one more.
Yeah, yes.
There we go.
I want to bring up this real quick. I want you to look at the far left. This was 2018 and 19. How this was a magnificent idea. Look at that in your far left of something we could actually do to something that scaled down to 120. Do you see the lack of innovation, the lack of forethought? This is how we work in this community. We think small. When it comes to certain sides of the community, we go small. We lack innovation. We lack thought. We don't care. We don't care. And that's proof. So I'm telling you, so the folks so here's what we also have, what we're up against. We're up against the county. The county manager wants to make you think that this property, which is on 45 acres, not 15 acres, had a landfill in it. Not true, number one. This is the games that get played. Number two, there's going to be some areas that we're going to have to, property that needs to be acquired, right? We do. But we have private development. I have had hydrological studies, engineering studies, anything including renderings done, including engineering, coming from a civil engineering background in the military, understood how we had to have a lot of this done. Dr. Bush can probably relate to some of what I'm talking about and why we can do it. But look at the transformation for what we have, which is very innovative from 2018 and 19, scaled down to that in January of 20, when staff presented some of this. Now, our community lacks vision locally among the community because they don't know and they haven't seen what I just showed you. But we're seeing that. And we owe it to the people. We owe it to those that we are served to do better. And this is where staff should be doing better. And you know what? Birmingham gave its best when it presented. And it started on the back of a napkin, folks, because somebody had the willpower, namely an African-American mayor, had the forethought. And somebody that worked for him had the forethought to bring this forward. And I'm telling you, we can do better. We deserve better. Our community deserves better. And I'm saying to us, if we're going to just sit here and settle and get nickeled and dimed for these $78 million, every month that passes, we're losing time. We don't have time. We're a year into this already, and we still haven't talked about moving forward. I'm asking us to move forward. I'm asking us to reject. And I'm asking us to put pressure on the city commissioners for all of their minutia, even that we've all heard it the last several months of diversity and inclusion. Well, diversity and inclusion is what I just showed you. What they're showing you is propitiation, systemic racism, implicit bias, and they're telling you, you all don't deserve it, and we can't develop that in your neighborhood. We're going to give you affordable housing because that's what we're going to settle. You'll be happy then. We're going to give you food trucks. We're going to give you little restaurants. We're going to give you little scraps. We deserve better. I've seen better. I know better. And I'm not settling. And this is why I owed it to you. I wish you all would have been there. I get it. We're in a different time. I hope this presentation helped you understand the veracity of where I'm coming from. This isn't just misplaced passion. These are the facts. I want to lay out facts and data of what we could actually do. But when you touch it, see it, feel it, a virtual tour wouldn't do it. I had to see it. I want you to see it, and I wanted to articulate what I saw. I hope I captured it. If you have any discussions, let's have discussion. I'm open to hearing what you have to say because I really am open to my colleagues and open to anybody else. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Brenda Gomez. Any questions of the board?
Thank you for the presentation, and thank you, for going physically and bringing this information back. It is helpful to understand what's there through
your information that you presented tonight. In the analysis that you got in terms of the economic impact, the jobs, was there any information on the number of jobs created by the Crossplex itself? I know that there's going to be some ancillary jobs with the restaurants, the hotels.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you for that question, Member Bush. I'm actually in the process of getting those numbers. I have to go to another department within Birmingham to get those numbers because they're outside that, but I am in the process. I will make sure you have those delivered to you because that was a question I did ask myself. I had local economic impact, but jobs is an important question. I can also probably defer to Member Assistant. I keep saying Member Bowie. She is not a member. Assistant Manager.
You're giving me another job.
Yeah,
no, I would just say yes. When I spoke to Ms. Oates, she's moved away from the Crossplex from an operational standpoint, but she was working on getting those updated figures from Member Gomez, and I think she's planning to get before the pandemic numbers because clearly anything that you see now will be impacted by COVID, but they can get those updated figures.
Thank you, Manager Bowie.
Member Mitchell.
Yes, thank you. Gomez for that presentation. I'm inspired by what I've seen, and what I want to know is how did they
hit you?
I'm sorry, it's on?
Okay.
Maybe I just don't have it close enough. Thank you. The funding. How did the funding work to build that
that's
structure?
a great question. So, and Ms. Bowie can interrupt me again, but so it was a public partnership. The city of Birmingham did most of the funding. Is that correct, Manager Bowie? She's saying yes. So
Yes.
yeah, the city. This is the city of Birmingham took this on, much like we're going to do. But the difference that I'm asking us to do is not just us bear the burden alone, but make it a public-private partnership as well. But the city of Birmingham decided that they wanted to take this project on alone. And much to the dismay of many folks that were saying, you're tearing up our fairgrounds, our history, that is what they were up against, but yet they still went forward. So the city of Birmingham funded this, and it went forward. Completely funded.
The issue on the fairgrounds, I guess it's a side thing. I guess they moved the fairgrounds somewhere else.
No, I guess they concreted over it.
They did. The fairgrounds really over the years, they would maybe have one fair there, but mostly it was just the weekend swap meet. I mean, it really wasn't bringing any significant traffic revenue, but it was just, it becomes sort of an eyesore actually in the community, to be honest. So no, there is no fairgrounds in its old traditional sense. I think it's interesting to talk about the history because there wasn't a lot of public support initially because of the very sordid history of what was there. Most people who lived in the area literally could walk to the fairgrounds as a child, but could not go in because they were African American. So when the project started, there was a lot of backlash about doing anything with it other than just bulldozing it down. Until there was certainly a sense of, I think when you're in a part of a community that has never seen any development be built there, people don't have a reference point, right? What they have are just history of people saying what they can and should do, but nothing had really happened. So I think at the beginning, it was really difficult for people to get a sense of what actually was going to be built at the Crossplex. And I think Ms. Oates even shared this with Member Gomez when he was there. In the beginning, a lot of the community thought this was going to be a community facility that they could go use, right? They could go there on the weekends and, with their friends and exercise. And the Crossplex, of course, isn't designed for that purpose. It is designed exclusively for the purpose of creating a youth sports venue for the kids of the Birmingham metropolitan area, primarily as an opportunity for them to have a pipeline into college on an athletic scholarship. So initially there was just a lot of work to do in getting the community to see the vision.
So I'm going to piggyback off that, Member Mitchell. It is going to be important for something like this. When we start messaging, we need to have one clear, consistent message and how this is messaged. But right now, this has been the dispensation from 2017 to now. I haven't just been working on this just starting now. This dates back to going to 2017, 2018, when Manager Bowie was the chief of staff. So this goes back some time. This predates Mr. Feldman. But it's important that we've had community engagement, but if the communities be engaged with a piece of the pie or crumbs, we're going to get crumbs. But there just seems to be a segment of this population that doesn't want to see anything happen in our community. And I'm just going to say to us, when are we going to have enough? Well, I'm saying I've had enough. Sorry, Mr. Chair.
I wanted to go back and just quickly answer the question about revenue. I think you had asked how did the city pay for it. Frankly, they doubled the business license fees that hadn't been touched in 30 years. So you had to do that with the consensus of the business community. Initially, that $48 million was raised from those fees. Over time, the facility, what was initially going to be built there had gone through some modifications, and I know the subsequent administration had to put even more funds into it. So it ended up topping 55 million, 60 million when it was all done.
Member Seawright.
I think some of my questions have been answered, but I was going to ask about what Assistant City Manager Bowie just discussed about the community use of it. Because I was going to ask that same question about, because I agree with you. I think, however this manifests as we move forward, that message has to be, because I think a lot of times the message has been wrong, and what the community has gotten is not what they thought they were going to get. And I think that has a lot to do with a lot of the bad vibes and the mistrust and those type of things, because it was never really explained. And I think a lot of that, in my opinion, and over the years of me being a city employee and the years of me not being a city employee, it comes with this cone of silence, for lack of a better thing to saying. As we're moving stuff out, we don't want to share stuff, we don't want to talk about this, we don't want to talk about that, and a lot of the good messages get lost. And so at the end, the community doesn't trust the city or county or whomever it is, because they feel like what we thought we were getting is not what we got. And so I think whatever we decide to do, we move forward. I agree with you 100%. I actually like this plan. It's one of the few that I've seen so far. I didn't dislike what the city had, but I just know from me being a part of the East Side community that that's not necessarily what they were looking for. But I do think that we have to figure out some kind of way to get them involved, because they're looking for something that they could participate in. And if you just have other, what is it called, Centroplex?
The crossplex.
I'm sorry, if the crossplex, if we do something just like the crossplex, where the community doesn't feel like they could come and be a part of it, you know, because it's always booked out because the colleges got it all the time, or you understand what I'm saying? I think that's going to be a hard pill for a lot of the community to swallow. But on the flip side, I think if they understand the benefits of what this crossplex is, I think it'll go a long way. I think this plan that I just heard, and I had never heard of crossplex till tonight, is more in tune with what all of the community meetings have been for East citizens over the last year, since Plan East Gainesville, since we were trying to do something on the East, on the Alachua County Fairgrounds. This to me is what is more in tune with what they were looking for.
Well, Member C. Wright, let me address a couple things. Number one, I'm not asking us to do necessarily this model. What I am asking us to do is something similar, maybe on a smaller scale, but however we choose to go forward, we go forward as one voice and it be a consistent voice. The problem that we've had within the community, we've been our own worst enemies within our community, and I'm talking about within the Black community. We've had communities of interest, whether that be different community organizations, you have 4As, or whoever it may be, different organizations, all are saying one thing, and nobody's talking to the powers. Like I said, I've been involved 3 years, and some of these community groups that we talked to, the people that have been on the ground being involved in it and going to get the dollars, including private development, we've been saying, hey, we're here, we're trying to do the job. I'm doing this because I have no ulterior motive. This gains me nothing personally. I want to see a project done right. I want it to be done to where it benefits the greater good. I'm putting my money where my mouth is and my time where my mouth is. I spent my own dollars. I'm not asking for any reimbursement. Why? Because I want this done right. What is the problem is when you're having community folks fighting against you, number one, that look like us, when we have no vision, and we'll settle for food trucks, we'll settle for scraps because we feel like, well, all Black folks are poor, so we're going to settle for just being treated like we're poor. Well, that's not true either. Or we consider other groups, our brothers and sisters of the light of you, all white folks are wealthy. That's not true. So we have these ill-conceived notions about what we deserve. What we deserve is better. What we deserve is something on the scale, but I agree with you completely. We need to have a message that is articulated consistently and thoroughly, because people believe what they can see. And obviously, you've never seen this before. Well, I'm telling you, the community that has been there for 10 years see it every day. And I'm telling you, for all the things that I see and in my studies and in my travel, and a lot of you know that I do a lot of travel, in my travels, to see something in a neighborhood much like East Gainesville brings a smile to my face, because we don't have to settle for food trucks, affordable housing, senior citizen homes, or just putting slabs of paint on a 71-year-old football stadium and think that we have to settle. No, we can actually have nice things in East Gainesville like they do in Innovation Square and Celebration Point, and if not better, because this can be the catalyst for change. We deserve better, and we have to start knowing that we deserve better. We do deserve better, and I'm telling you, it takes vision, and I know a lot of us on this board are visionaries, It takes a vision, and it's going to take a lot of willpower. And I do dare say some of our elected officials may not have the political willpower. They do a lot of rhetorical talking, but it's going to take willpower. And that community had someone that took will, was going to take the arrows and the sleeves to take it.
Member Dixon, you have your hand up.
Yes, hi. I'm sorry I can't be there with you all tonight, but hopefully next time. I thought this presentation was really interesting. I really appreciate Member Gomez's passion for this topic and having taken that trip and bring this information back to us. It's really helpful and inspiring. It's always inspiring to see other communities that have had successes like this, and we really know this had to be a really heavy lift, and they got it done, and it's been successful for them. Couple of things that leaves me wondering, though. I'm thinking in my mind of sort of what have we done a very good assessment of what the missing gaps are in Gainesville. I don't know if this kind of activity is something that from a market study perspective, if there would be as much draw here as there would in a place like Birmingham, or we already host a lot of those events. I'm thinking, we do certainly host a lot of these kinds of, statewide high school events and things like that on the UF campus. And maybe we could bring more to Gainesville. A lot of times the campus, we're not really set up to do those things. We do them, they're not our core mission. Could we bring more of those events here if we had different facilities off campus? Maybe, I don't know. I liked the one comment you made, though, about just thinking about even the football stadium there on the site, and creating that, or sort of re-envisioning that as a more multi-purpose facility, I think is really something that I find inspiring and intriguing. But I was in thinking about those questions about the feasibility and the market study and the kind of how these things come into our community now or they don't come. I was just also wondering if there was any kind of a group that's sort of brainstorming or doing some of that work. And I don't know if it would be like anybody in the chamber, or I was thinking about the VCB. I don't know how involved they are. They don't seem to be real visible to me in this community. I work in St. Augustine a lot, and I see their VCB is very engaged. But thinking about groups like that, I know there used to be a Gainesville Sports Organizing Committee. I don't know if that even exists anymore. The school board, I think even like Eric Bretfeld and his expertise in just, recruiting in among certain industries. I think we could even get people from the O'Connell Center and the Athletic Association to participate in conversations about kind of the business of bringing these kinds of events, what their experience is, what works, what's challenging. I'm just not sure kind of where we are at as a community and figuring out sort of what is the missing piece, and how can we bring something that's very innovative and inspiring for Gainesville. And maybe it's something like this, maybe it's this but with a little different twist, or maybe it is something quite a bit different that's uniquely Gainesville. But anyway, I'm just asking that question. Have there been those kinds of conversations and even market study?
So, Member Dixon, a couple of things. As far as the market studies, I want to work in reverse, because you had a whole lot of questions. I want to work from your most recent study, and then I'll work back to the market study. A lot of the organizations that you listed off, BCB, this organization, the chamber, here's what I say to that. Let's think back historically. If somebody had an interest in doing something, we talked about the chamber's interest historically, they would have been doing that. So historically, you can show me better than you could tell me. When it came to Cone Park, there was a lot of pushback from the Gainesville Sports, whatever group that was back then when it came to Cone Park. So I don't want to sit there and just talk about what folks are not doing. If people had an interest in doing, anytime we seem to want to do a study, though, let's talk about studies, Member Dixon. The county did a study, and we don't want to, they called it a feasibility study. Anytime the county's done a study, it's been an unfeasibility study, because they give, for an example, they'll tell you that it was 15 acres of developable land, which Anybody with a gnat's brain, if you do the GIS on that land, it's 45 acres. So the county manager did an unfeasibility study done by Victus 2 years ago, and it was an unfeasibility study. That's number one. So this city alone likes to do studies. We will pay for studies, and we'll do another study when we don't like necessarily that data to get another study. And we study when we don't want to get anything done. We've done a lot of studies. And so I will tell you, to answer your question when it comes to a market-based study, we do have a lot of events here, Member Dixon, that get held from the Florida Sports Athletic Association when it comes to track meets. But again, when it comes to the school board uses it part-time. Are they making the best use of it? We could be partners, sure. We could probably even host championships. But my thing is, we don't necessarily have to go down that particular business model. I've had a conversation, and if Mr. Feldman's still on here, I'm going to give him a plug here. Mr. Feldman and I have had discussions where we could even do things like gaming conventions. We could do a lot of things. Mr. Feldman will attest that he and I have had that discussion. Well, so I'm not asking us to just focus on one entity or aspect of it, but let's do what makes good for Gainesville and not just Birmingham. We obviously can't do a 750,000 square foot. Number one, we're not going to do that, right? So we need to do something on a smaller scale. We may need to do something that makes it better for our culture, like a multicultural center where we could have trade shows. Mr. Feldman I can attest to that kind of stuff, and if any ideas he has as well, I'd like to hear from him as well.
So thank you. Just a couple of thoughts. I didn't want to get too much into the weeds on it today. But,
sure.
We do need to pay attention to what the market will support, especially since if we're going to look at a public-private venture, we're going to need to be able to go to a private partner with some sort of market analysis to entice them to participate. As you know, the county is already moving forward with the Celebration Point complex, and while that's not as big as the Crossplex, it is a competing force, and they are putting in about $30 million worth of county tourist development tax dollars. So we've just got to be cognizant of competing, but that doesn't mean that we can't figure out what is going to be unique and transformative for that site. And one of the concepts that I've been toying with for several years, even before I got to Gainesville, was the idea of looking at creating an esports arena, which is something that when you look at the marketplace, the nearest esports arena is at Full Sail University in Orlando. There's nothing here to really tap this new venture. I mean, this esports generates more dollars in revenue than some of the major sports, and it's also a way that that kids can actually get to college on scholarships now, because a lot of the Division I schools are starting to offer esports scholarships. So to me, that's a sample. I'm not promoting that as the answer, but I'm just saying that what we need to do is start looking at where we can be new in the market to create opportunities that aren't anywhere else, or at least not anywhere else in our region. And that we just got to be careful that we're not, competing with either the university or the county or others that are here for the same marketplace.
Well, a couple of things, Mr. Manager. Folks, two things I want to bring to it. This is the exact, and the manager brought it to light, the exact betrayal that the county commission did for all of the nonsense, because I heard two members recently, Commissioner Preza, Commissioner Alford, Commissioner Mary Helen Wheeler, and Commissioner Ken Cornell told us they all were going to keep and support the event center. We all support equity. And every time we're in East Gainesville or the eastern part of our city, they say to people that look like me, or Member Seawright, or Member Mitchell, or Member Merritt, well, we support you. We support equity, diversity, inclusion. And then what happens? It's the same nonsense and the same game. So what exactly does that mean? You're supporting diversity and inclusion by keeping people in bondage, taking away the fairgrounds and the event center, and now you're forcing to compete because they just don't care. It's all rhetoric. So when I'm hearing this diversity and inclusion rhetoric of more affordable housing, is it diversity? I want to keep people poor and just keep them in affordable housing. We don't want to have jobs, something that can transform it. So the manager was kind of, it's not this is not the manager's fault. This is not the manager's, city manager's fault that happened. The county manager, that's the game that's being played. Our concern, and where I want to push back a little bit, Mr. Feldman, is this. Not so much at you personally, but just the idea of what we can do differently. I'm saying that this city needs a destination place. I've been saying the same thing for 3 years. 2 years ago, the county didn't have any movement. They're lying to us and saying that they put out an RFP. Ms. Bowie or Mr. Feldman, the county is putting out this idea that they put out an RFP for an event center in the city of Gainesville. Is that true? Yes or no?
So I'm not aware of an RFP that has gone out. What they did is, you talked about, they did the study from Victus.
Yes.
They looked at several sites. I do not believe 8th and Waldo was, well, I take that back. 8th and Waldo
It was
may have been one of the sites.
I can provide it to you if you need.
No, I've got it. I'm just trying to do
Okay.
it from there. But they did not do an RFP. What they did was, under Florida statutes, they received an unsolicited proposal from the Center Celebration Point partnership, and that's what they acted upon.
Mr. Manager, is that a development by right for the event center and Celebration Point?
I'm not sure if I understand what you mean, a development by right.
That project that's going to happen, or does the developer or the builder have a development by right? Can they develop by right on that property?
I'm not sure what the zoning.
Okay, fair enough.
are there.
Okay, so see, what I'm saying to us is, this is where we come together. What the county's going to do, whatever it's going to do. They gave us $78 million. I'm coming to us and saying, let's stop with the nickel and diming of little projects. I'm not saying we put all of our heads, but I'm saying let's start moving now. This is what I'm saying. We've been delay, and this is what I keep getting. You see my frustration. A lot of y'all think, man, you sure are angry. I'm not angry. No, I'm passionate about it. I know what we're needing, and this was why. Finally, I'm able to articulate. So it's not angry. You don't see me angry. This is what I've been trying to get you all to see. We can do better. Maybe not to the scale, but I am confident in everybody up here, our abilities, you all. I'm confident in us to help provide direction and advise both the city commission and provide direction to our very talented staff, very talented director, very talented assistant city manager, a very talented city manager, for us to get this done by working together as a team, collaborate, negotiate where we need to. And Mr. Powell, you sure have been tired. I know a facilities guy, you have to have some questions.
I've been listening. I think Ms. Dixon still has her hand up.
Oh, I'm sorry, Ms. Dixon.
Sorry, no, I just forgot to take it down.
Oh, I thought you weren't done yet. Any other questions? No, I'm good.
Okay.
Somebody bring something.
All right,
Member Merritt.
Next thing, here we go, Mr. Merritt.
I just want to say thank you for your presentation. It is quite moving and influential, and I look forward to seeing what we can do to really bring destination point to the city of Gainesville, because I've been here since 2005, and there's nothing other than the University of Florida, in my opinion.
Yes. So I hope that maybe this is bringing some understanding for where I've been coming from. For the last years, it's starting to make sense now, because this is where I've been coming from, because I know. And sometimes when you can't necessarily articulate it, I had to do this, but this is what, had you all traveled with me and I was able to take us, and we were able to caravan, this is what you would be able to see. And you'd be like, you would have had your own questions. And knowing Dr. Bush, knowing Member Seawright, we would have gotten to, we have a very talented, and I give a lot of deference to a lot of you up here. And sometimes especially Member Dixon, Member Bush, and Member Seawright, all of us really. I'm sometimes just like, you know what, I didn't think about that part, especially with doing the study. I just don't want us to get caught in the weeds of, we tend to go small. We don't need to go small. We need to do what's good for the scope of the size of our city, but we need to put the transmission in drive and go forward. We can't worry about across the street. Well, wait a minute, guys, what were you doing? I'm not interested in what you're doing. We're gonna do what we're gonna do. Well, let's create a destination place. We've had a lot of community engagement. Mr. Manager, I will tell you that between the CRA last year and a little bit before you got here, for the last year, we all know that. We've done a lot of community engagement. We've heard from our friends and neighbors. My friends and neighbors that live in East Gainesville, I hear from them too. And a lot of them want to see transformative change other than food trucks, other than old buildings getting filled in and just barbershops. We want to see what we are, again, $1.8 trillion in spending power. As a race of people, we are the largest consumer of goods and spending power. Those are facts. That's data. And the data alone says black folks like to shop, black folks like to go to movie theaters, grocery shop, and guess what? They do spend their dollars and they want to spend it and see nice things too. So I'm telling you, what could this project potentially do? It could potentially, not only we develop something, we could get people to have hoteliers along that. I know Mr. Fleming is a private developer who wants to do some things and is giving up and donating some land as well. We can have some real quality development. Waldo Road looks old and has looked old for the last 40 or 50 years. And I'm 41 years old. It looks the same before I was born, and that's a shame. So thank you for your time. Thank you for listening to me. I appreciate all of you as my colleagues for really indulging me tonight. Thank you, Mr. Feldman. Thank you, Ms. Bowie. Thank you, Tricia. Thank you, Ms. Vidal. Thank you, all of the GCR staff, Mo, Tricia, David, all of you. Thank you, Dr. Bredfeld. Thank you, all of involved, and I appreciate you. And thank you to all the citizens. Oh, Mr.
I just checking any public questions. I don't see any hands up. Remember to dial 9 on your phone. Before we let the speaker go, I want to make sure he's there to answer any questions if you had any. I don't see any hands up. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
All right, I've been informed by staff that we do not need to vote on the infinity line, so we're going to double back and pick it up. Who's got that presentation?
It's Dan Gilbert, Daniel Blumberg. Yep. Okay.
Excellent.
I'll try to be thorough as we're coming up on our third hour here on the meeting.
Oh, you can make it quick then.
I'll try. Good evening, board. Dan Gill, GCRA project manager, here tonight to provide an update on the Infinity Line. At the November 17th, 2020 advisory board meeting, you recommended for staff to bring back a scope of work and potential funding partners for the segments within the GCRA boundary. Since our last meeting, we've discussed a way forward for the segments within our boundaries with city leadership and internal departments to understand next steps. Tonight, I will briefly update you on the feedback received and what's needed in order for the Infinity Line concept to move forward. Although the recommendation was to bring back a scope of work and potential funding partners, there is a process to determine the feasibility of the proposed project and issues around ownership and funding that should be addressed prior. Please bear with us that the slides may be a little out of date as we've gotten new information since the presentation was submitted and today's meetings. So with that, next slide. As a reminder, the Infinity Line concept is about connecting existing rails to trails to create an 11-mile looping trail in the shape of a figure 8 with Depot Park at its center. Those 11 miles are made up of 6 trails depicted in the first aerial with 6 different colors, a different color for each trail. And out of those 6 trails, only 3 are currently existing, seen in that second aerial. And out of those 3 existing trails, only specific sections enter and exit the GCRA district boundary depicted in the third aerial. Next slide, please. Our focus will be at the intersection of Waldo Road and University Avenue. This intersection serves as a huge disconnect for users of the current East Side Rails to Trails, and it perhaps is the biggest obstacle of the Infinity Line, seen there at the bottom right. Next slide, please. The Infinity Line concept proposes to connect the Waldo Road Rails to Trails with a pedestrian connector bridge spanning diagonally over the intersection, while moving street traffic below through a 2-lane roundabout. Next slide, please. In meeting with our internal partners, we discussed the feasibility of the proposed bridge, being that Waldo Road and University Avenue are both state roads that live under the umbrella of the Florida Department of Transportation, FDOT. And so part of our next steps would be to work with the Department of Mobility to meet with FDOT leadership in Jacksonville to discuss the proposed concept. If FDOT is amenable to the concept, next steps would include hiring a firm to analyze traffic data to ascertain that a roundabout is justifiable by FDOT criteria. The cost for this study can range from $20,000 to $60,000 depending on the complexity. Next slide, please. And so internally, Public Works estimated the construction of the roundabout and pedestrian bridge alone to be about a $30 million project. The bridge would require elevators at each entrance for ADA requirements and potentially significant right-of-way acquisitions on the 4 corners of the project. So hopefully this provides some context of next steps and the financial resources needed in order to move these pieces forward. And if FDOT gives the city the green light to move forward with the study, we would also engage the consultant to create an order of magnitude costs. This would assist the board and the commission in revisiting the priorities in the consolidated plan. Next slide, please. And so the recommendation is simply to hear this update. However, in light of the feedback given tonight regarding ownership and potential cost and next steps, we'd like a discussion and potential recommendation around whether or not GCRA should move the Infinity Line from conceptual to a feasibility analysis as described, if FDOT is open to entertaining the project. I know that was a lot to digest, but thank you all for your attention. Just next slide, please. Thank you all for your attention tonight, and that concludes our presentation, and that staff is here to answer any questions you may have. Thank you.
Member Merritt? Yep. Who's 10?
That's him.
Don't want it?
He said it was the last time.
Then Ms. Seawright.
I have a question. Dan, could you go back to the slides that was scope and focus proposed?
Sure. And that, again, with that, I'm going to ask for a little, that was when we first submitted it, that's kind of what we were kind of, broadly thinking, but as we had internal discussions, I think that's the next, oh, is that what you're talking about there?
Yeah, I want to see, because because
I apologize. Okay.
No, that's fine, because it's black and white. Now, I had a question. Could you just, I may just not be understanding, because on the agenda, when you wrote out the Infinity Line, it said, after the second paragraph towards the end, it said, furthermore, it says the subsequent goal is redesigning the Waldo Road to encourage redevelopment and reinvestment in the East Side Duval neighborhoods. Furthermore, connecting the rails to trails at University Avenue and Waldo Road with the pedestrian bridge can provide safe passage for Duval residents to Depot Park and vice versa. So I'm just reading this, and so I'm trying to visualize how you going from Duval to Depot Park.
Okay, Daniel, can you go to the slide before that? And this is going to be kind of hard. If you look at that intersection, if you go back forward, Daniel, thanks. That intersection photo, and I know it's very small. If you look at the previous Infinity Line presentations, the East Side Waldo Road rails to trails gets severed at this intersection. And it goes from the north.
That's Waldo University, okay.
Yes, ma'am. And the rail or.
Sorry, Dan. Sorry, Dan.
What was that? I missed it.
They were trying to explain to me. Go ahead.
So the project is proposing, you know, looking at this project as a whole, you know, trying to envision it completed in terms of all the 6 trails built out and connecting you know, creating that, you know, realizing the concept. There is a huge issue at this intersection for the Infinity Line specifically, and that is because the rail, I apologize, the trail gets broken there by that intersection. Traditionally, you know, Depot Park was the depot and kind of the nucleus for a lot of train, you know, goings in and out of Gainesville. And so naturally there's a corridor that goes from Depot Park along Waldo Road. And so the intersection severs the rails to trails. And so when I had initially developed this project, that was a huge issue. And it was, well, you know, how could we connect this? And then we started to look at different options. I started to look at different options and came up with an idea of, if we did a bridge, you know, how can we start to see if that can solve the problem? And so, well, if there's a bridge, that bridge is going to need support columns. And so then it kind of slowly trickled down into this idea of like, well, what if we looked at redesigning this whole intersection, you know, as it is a gateway to the east side, you know, from the west side of town, and also a gateway for Gainesville from the east side of town. And it just seemed like there was an opportunity here, you know, shooting for the stars, naturally, that, you know, there could be a lot of, you know, for the lack of a better term, a lot of birds, you know, killed with one stone. And so, you know, proposing the roundabout is giving the foundational support to be able to have a bridge that will clear that intersection. Does that make sense? I know I talked a lot there.
It does, and I have some more questions, but what
Sure.
I'm going to do is I'm going to call you, Dan. Okay.
Fair enough. It's late. I got it.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome, Stephanie.
Dan?
Yes, sir.
So I wanna redirect us a little bit. I'm gonna speak to you. I'll come back to you in a minute, Dan. This is more so to my colleagues. I looking at our budget, I said I wanted to create a synergy project. I just would like to say, I think I want to take a page out of Member Bush and Member Dixon, where some of these dollars could possibly come from, are not us. Since the big thing seems to be with a lot of the traffic woes our city is going through, and I don't want to be that's nothing to be comical about, but seriously, some of these dollars could come from elsewhere, whether it be for our bridge. And I want to encourage project manager, is it project manager 1 or 2?
I'm sorry?
Is it project manager 1 or 2?
2.
Yes, he got promoted, everybody. Congratulations. See?
Thank you very much.
Project manager, Mr. Gill, I would like to see if we can get those dollars from FDOT as best we can, minimize the amount of dollars that are going to come out of our budget. But Member Gill, the plan you showed us early last year, when you compared some of that to what's going on in Atlanta, especially along the Waldo Road corridor with the greenscape, et cetera, is that still going to be in place?
You know, it's hard for me to speak to what you know the next steps are going to be beyond this feasibility analysis and how we'll come back. The idea is that if we get the green light with FDOT and doing an analysis, you know, that may kind of extend down the corridor. I'm not sure. I mean, we can look at that as staff. You know, maybe I'm sure there'll be some kind of, you know, connections with 8th Ave and University and maybe even 16th Avenue. But I don't want to get ahead of ourselves and promise, you know, make some promises that we might not be able to meet. So you know, doing that feasibility analysis at the intersection is going to be, you know, if FDOT gives us a green light, that would be pretty big.
Okay, so for your roundabout, I guess for me, as long as those dollars are gonna come out of FDOT, FDOT, Florida Department of Transportation, and elsewhere, I have no qualms. My concern is I don't want that coming out of the GCRA budget, really. And if so, I want it to be as nominal as possible. If it comes, even including general fund, because it is a state road and a state highway, for both ends. So improvements, but I'm afraid that's gonna be a wishful thinking at best. So great job, Mr. Gill. Great job, and again, congratulations on your promotion.
Thanks, Wanda. Appreciate it.
Member Bush.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So right now, when you're asking for kind of, I guess, direction on whether or not to go forward with the feasibility study, at this point in the fiscal note, there is no impact. So the question is whether or not we would direct CRA staff to basically talk to FDOT about about doing a feasibility study. Is that what's on the table?
Member Bush, if I might respond, this is Sarah Vidal, GCRA Director. So we would like to move forward, just figuring out, if this is even a feasible project and if they're open to it. If they are, then we would return with the scope of work for the study to you all. But I think the big thing tonight is we wanted you all to understand the potential costs associated with the construction of that concept, because it's such a huge number and we have a limited budget. So we wanted you all to begin to think about, if this moves forward and if you would like it to move forward, kind of how we would shift our priorities. So next month we'll be coming back with the prioritization item. And we, as mentioned earlier, we don't really need a recommendation tonight, but we just wanted some feedback, from you all, and then also just to kind of bring awareness to the fact that, this may or may not be feasible, and there's a substantial cost to it.
Okay, thank you for the clarification. And I apologize, but what was the estimated cost? I thought I heard 30,000 for a feasibility study and a couple million for the pedestrian bridge. Is that?
Yeah, it's we were quoted 20 to 60,000 for the study. It just depends on, there's a range with complexity. And then for the overpass, Public Works gave us an estimate of 60 million or 30 million, right? 30 million. Yeah, sorry. It's late.
30 million for the construction alone for the bridge and the roundabout.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's a lot. You got what you needed?
Yeah. Okay.
Member Mitchell.
Mr. Chair. Thank you for that presentation, Mr. Gill. And congratulations once again on your promotion.
Thank you.
I just was looking at kind of like the future context of the possible future context of Waldo Road and what we're talking about with the major project, anchor project existing between, like, on 8th and Waldo, University 16th, those traffic increases, and how do roundabouts serve such massive amounts of traffic. Looking at people gathering in places for big events. I would want to encourage you to consider that. And also, my question is, are there any comparables out there of roundabouts that have been done in around major event facilities, and what does that look like?
I'll definitely look into that.
That's a great question. Any other questions from the board?
Brad?
I'm looking at Ms. Dixon with her hand up again, the little yellow hand.
Hey, hand up. I think I've mentioned this before, I'll mention it again. There is a countywide bicycle master plan that has been moving forward. They've now actually selected the consultants for that. It's a project that the North Central Florida Regional Planning Council is staffing as staff to the MTPO, but the study was funded with contributions from City of Gainesville, Alachua County, and the University of Florida. So the end product of that is going to be a countywide prioritization of bicycle and pedestrian projects. So there'll be cost estimates, there'll be evaluation criteria, there'll be public input, and ultimately the MTPO has a little bit of money set aside in their long-range plan for funding projects that come out of that study. I don't even know if it's enough to cover your overpass, but they do have some money in there. So I just really think we need to make sure that this project gets plugged into that. You can check with Planning Council staff on the timing of that. I know the consultants were selected in November or December. I think they're under contract now. So they'll be ramping up very soon here. And it may be that study might accomplish some of what you're trying to get done in your study in terms of just getting to some costs.
Thank you, Member Dixon. Definitely look into that. Thank you.
I don't see any other board member comments, any public comment. No hands are up. Dial 9 on your phone. Still no hands are up. All right. We have made it through the agenda with the exception of the one thing we needed to vote on and some internal elections. And I guess there's no adjournment because we never started a meeting. So you all, it's cold outside, bundle up. It was a pleasure spending the evening with you.
Have a good evening.